Chapter 394. On the city wall, the Emperor God looked down at Yi Xian with a hint of surprise in his eyes. This sword skill, down below, after being pushed back by Yi Xian's sword, the giant dragon was a little confused. The next moment, it flew into a rage and was about to strike again. The divine emperor on the city wall suddenly said, "Back off." Below, the dragon stopped and retreated to the side of the city wall, but its eyes were fixed on En Yeshing. The emperor god appeared in front of Yi Xian and sized up Yi Xian. "What's the name of that sword skill?" Yi Xian said, "Sword draw to decide life and death." This sword skill was originally 2 sword skills passed down to me by 2 seniors, but I merged them into one. The emperor god nodded slightly and said softly, "This sword skill is extraordinary, but your 2 seniors are even more extraordinary." Yi Xian smiled and did not speak. The emperor god looked at Yi Xian. "Do you know why I wanted you to fight this dragon?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior didn't want me to defeat this dragon, but to see if I have the determination to fight it." The emperor god smiled slightly. "You're not bad." With that, he glanced at the dragon not far away and said softly, "As a warrior, fear is the most taboo. The path of martial Tao is endless. On this path, you will encounter countless troubles, and if you have fear, you won't go far." With that, he looked at Yi Xian. "Not only do you have no fear, but you also have the determination to fight to the death." Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. "Senior, you're overpraising me. Actually, I wanted to escape just now." The emperor god smiled. "As expected of a swordsman. You don't need to hide." With that, he opened his right hand and a ray of white light appeared in his palm. The god sovereign looked at Yi Xian. "Obtaining my inheritance also means that you have karma with me. Because of today's matter, it might bring you many troubles in the future. You have to think this through." Yi Xian smiled bitterly, "I already have a lot of troubles. I don't mind if it's a little more." The divine emperor nodded. "Although the Heaven Awakening Starfield has perished, many of my subordinates are still around. They are all arrogant and unruly people. If you don't have enough strength to obtain my inheritance, they won't submit to you. Not only will they not submit to you, but they might even kill you. Therefore, after leaving this place, before you fully mature, try to keep a low profile as much as possible." As he spoke, he gently flipped his right hand, and the white light directly entered the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Yi Xian's body trembled. Soon, countless pieces of information surged into his mind. At the same time, something appeared in his sea of consciousness. Yi Xian didn't look at these things in detail because the body of the god emperor in front of him was gradually turning illusory. As Jian Zizai said, this fist of the way of the king was not suitable for him to cultivate. However, he thought of someone who was definitely suitable for cultivating it. Lian Wanli and Tuoba Yen. These 2 people were very suitable for cultivating this fist technique. At this time, Jian Zizai said again, "You can cultivate the invincible golden body. This is a magical power. If you successfully cultivate it, you can activate the golden body in a short period of time. As for the strength of the golden body, it depends on you." Yi Xian hurriedly looked at the invincible golden body. As he looked, Yi Xian became a little excited. This was because if he successfully cultivated the invincible golden body, his body would be even stronger than a dragon's. He had personally experienced the defensive capabilities of the giant dragon before. His sword was at the peak of the saint level, but it could not even leave a mark on the dragon's body. If he successfully cultivated it, he would be invincible for a certain period of time. Thinking of this, Yi Xian became even more excited. However, he did not immediately cultivate it. Instead, he looked at the seal. This seal should be the Earth God's seal. As soon as Yi Xian took out the seal, it suddenly disappeared. Yi Xian was slightly stunned. The next moment, his expression changed. "Jian Zizai." On the 4th floor, Jian Zizai's voice sounded. "This seal is temporarily useful to me. I'll use it for a while. I'll return it to you in 3 days." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "The real reason you asked me to come here is for this seal?" Jian Zizai did not reply. Yi Xian was about to continue asking when the god on the second floor suddenly said, "She probably needs the qi of the mountains and rivers in the seal to recover her body." Yi Xian said, "If she recovers, will she break out of the tower?" Thinking of this, Yi Xian was a little afraid. If they fought, he would definitely not be able to defeat this woman. If she came out, he would be the first to die. The god on the second floor said lightly, "Who knows if she can break out of the tower?" Yi Xian was speechless. A moment later. This chapter is not over. Please turn the page. Yi Xian did not care about Jian Zizai anymore. It was meaningless to worry about this now. He waved his right hand, and a set of equipment appeared in front of him. Yi Xian knew that this set of equipment should be the twilight of the gods that Jian Zizai mentioned. Yi Xian bent his finger and a drop of blood fell on the armor. The next moment, the twilight of the gods disappeared, and when it reappeared, it was already on Yi Xian's body. When he put on the twilight of the gods, Yi Xian's expression changed greatly. He quickly took it off. At this moment, his body had been completely cracked, and blood was flowing out. At this moment, he was completely covered in blood. Jian Zizai suddenly said, "Do you want to die?" The Twilight of the Gods is an immortal artifact, and each of them is a top-grade immortal artifact. Your body can't withstand their power at all. If you forcibly wear it, your body will directly collapse. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Jian Zizai said, "I can't wait for you to die." Yi Xian was speechless. A moment later, Yi Xian sat down and looked at the twilight of the gods in front of him. He was a little worried. He couldn't use it. No matter how good it was, if it couldn't be used, it was no different from scrap iron. Now, it was like he had a golden box, but he didn't have the key to it. Jian Zizai said again, "If you successfully cultivate the invincible golden body, then when you use it, you can wear the twilight of the gods." Yi Xian stood up at once. "Yes. If I successfully cultivate the invincible golden body, my body will be invincible at that time, and I can naturally wear the twilight of the gods." Speaking of this, he became excited again. Cultivate the invincible golden body. Yi Xian found that to cultivate the invincible golden body, he needed the help of external objects, and the first external object to bear the brunt was dragon blood. Dragon blood. Yi Xian turned his head to look at the two giant dragons. The dragons were ready-made, but how could he get the blood? Yi Xian didn't think that the other party would just stand there and let him take the sword to release some dragon blood. He had to get the dragon blood first. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then walked in front of the giant dragon that he had fought with. At this time, the giant dragon opened its eyes. They were very big, even bigger than Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. "Senior Dragon, I am the successor of the Divine Emperor." The giant dragon looked down at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. It just looked at him quietly. Yi Xian braced himself and said, "Well, can you lend me some dragon blood?" "Not much, 1 bucket is enough." At this time, the giant dragon's eyes turned cold. Seeing this, the corner of Yi Xian's eye twitched. He quickly said, "Half a bucket is fine too." The giant dragon suddenly raised a dragon claw and was about to slap down. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian turned and ran. His speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the distant horizon. The giant dragon was stunned. He ran away just like that? The giant dragon didn't chase after him. After a moment, it put away its claw, and at this time, it suddenly raised its head. In the air not far in front of it, there was a black-robed man floating. The black-robed man didn't have any aura at all, as if he didn't exist. The giant dragon stared at the black-robed man, a trace of vigilance in its eyes. At this time, the black-card man waved his right hand, and a sword suddenly appeared above the black-robed man's head. In an instant, the world changed color. Seeing that sword, a deep sense of fear appeared in the giant dragon's eyes, but it didn't retreat. Instead, it roared at the black-robed man, but it didn't make a move. Obviously, it was very afraid. The black-robed man suddenly walked toward the giant dragon. "If I swing this sword, you might die." The giant dragon. End of this chapter. Chapter 395. Outside the city gates, the dragon stared fixedly at the black-robed man, and there was deep fear in its eyes. It couldn't sense how strong the black-robed man was, but it could sense how terrifying that sword was. It was very well aware that its current body couldn't resist that attack at all. However, the proud dragon race would never lower their heads to their enemies. The dragon roared at the black-robed man with determination in its eyes. Obviously, it was prepared to fight to the death. Right at this moment, the black-robed man suddenly stopped and put his sword away. The dragon was stunned. The black-robed man spoke indifferently, "Want to have a chat?" The dragon gazed at the black-robed man, "Human. What are you trying to do?" The black-robed man replied, "It's nothing. The old man has a disciple who needs some dragon blood. Can you give him some? The old man will remember this favor." Dragon blood. The dragon was stunned, and then it spoke solemnly, "That young man?" The black-robed man nodded. The dragon spoke solemnly, "He already has a powerful master like you, so why does he still want to inherit my master's inheritance?" The black-robed man replied, "The martial Tao and sword Tao are different paths that lead to the same goal. They aren't contradictory." The dragon fell silent for a moment, and then a fist-sized pearl of blood floated over to the black-robed man. The black-robed man put it away, "Thank you." As he spoke, he was about to turn around and leave. However, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, "The God Emperor has fallen, yet you're still waiting here?" The dragon spoke solemnly, "We once swore that we'll remain loyal to him." The black-robed man said, "But he's fallen. So, this oath should naturally vanish as well." The dragon fell silent. The black-robed man continued, "Everything is gone once he's dead, so this oath should naturally vanish as well. If you continue to stay here, then you're being inflexible instead of keeping your word." The dragon fell silent for a moment, and then it said, "A third of our souls are within the earth god seal." The black-robed man said, "How about this? I'll ask my disciple to return your souls." The dragon was stunned, "What do we have to pay?" The black-robed man replied, "You don't have to pay anything. Just help him once if he has a request, and you can't refuse." The dragon fell silent for a moment, and then it said, "All right. That was a good deal." The black-robed man nodded slightly and disappeared into thin air. Seeing the black-robed man disappear into thin air, the giant dragon's expression gradually turned solemn. The black-robed man was naturally Yi Xian. When he found out that the earth god's seal contained the souls of two enormous dragons, Yi Xian had the thought of subduing these two enormous dragons. However, he did not do so in the end. Because after interacting with it, he realized that this giant dragon was extremely arrogant. It was impossible for it to submit to him. If he forced it, it would only backfire. Therefore, he changed his method, and that was to ask the other party to help him once. If he were to lend a helping hand once, the other party would definitely not refuse, nor would he have any reason to refuse. After all, it was not a loss at all. To him, it was enough for him to have the other party lend him a hand. Yi Xian returned to the front of the city gate and asked Jian Zizai to return the souls of the two giant dragons. After receiving the souls, the two giant dragons immediately soared into the sky. In the sky, the two dragons soared and circled violently, blotting out the sky. After a while, one of the dragons suddenly looked down at Yi Xian below. Soon, a dragon whisker floated in front of Yi Xian. If there's anything, send a voice transmission. This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. Enter the dragon's whisker, and we will rush over. With that, the two giant dragons disappeared into the horizon. Below, Yi Xian entered the city and arrived at a palace. There was nothing in the palace, and it was very quiet. Yi Xian entered the prison pagoda and took out the ball of dragon blood. The color of the dragon blood was extremely dark, like magma. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Miss Jian, how do I cultivate with this?" Jian Zizai said, "If you apply it externally, your body will be very strong, but your organs and meridians will not be greatly improved. If you take it internally, your meridians and organs will be improved qualitatively. However, you will suffer the pain of the dragon blood burning. It's your choice. Take it internally." Yi Xian had no choice but to swallow the dragon blood. The moment he swallowed it, his facial features instantly twisted. Pain. At that moment, Yi Xian felt as if his body was being burned by charcoal. At that moment, Jian Zizai suddenly said, "Who told you to swallow it like that? This thing needs to be fused with something extremely cold. Only then will it not be so painful." Yi Xian roared in his heart, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" "You didn't ask." Yi Xian was speechless. Not long after, Yi Xian's entire body shrunk into a ball, and his entire body emitted a strong heat wave. Not only that, but his entire body seemed to be roasted, turning red. Pain. This was equivalent to burning his body with fire, and it was the kind of burning that stuck to his body. Endure. What he could do now was to endure like crazy. Not far away, Xiaoling looked at Yi Xian, a little anxious. As if thinking of something, she gently placed her two small hands between Yi Xian's eyebrows, and soon, a pure spiritual energy poured into Yi Xian's body. The power of origin. Above the void-piercing realm was the origin realm, and to reach the origin realm, one must master origin power. And Xiaoling was the origin of Qingzhou. Simply put, she was the source of origin power. She did not know this, and Yi Xian did not know either. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian, who was lying on the ground, gradually calmed down, and Xiaoling was so tired that she lay on his body, sleeping soundly. After about 3 days, Yi Xian's body trembled slightly, and then he stood up. Crack. In an instant, the bones in his body cracked. Yi Xian hurried to check his body. At the moment, his body had gone through a tremendous change, both inside and out. At this moment, Jian Zizai's voice sounded, "Right now, it is difficult for an origin realm expert to hurt your body. If you successfully cultivate the invincible golden body, you are basically invincible under the supreme realm. Of course, don't run into those super monsters." Hearing this, Yi Xian immediately became a little excited, because he discovered that after his body became stronger, the sword skill drawing sword to determine life and death would also become stronger. Moreover, it was not just a little stronger. Right now, his strength was very, very strong. And if he successfully cultivated the invincible golden body, his strength would take a qualitative leap. Cultivate. In the following time, Yi Xian began to cultivate the invincible golden body. After refining his body with the dragon blood, his body could already cultivate the invincible golden body, so it was not difficult for him to cultivate. Time passed little by little in the cultivation world, Dao Yi City. On this day, an old man led 4 men in black to the outskirts of Dao Yi City. This old man was, "This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page," the Dugu family's elder, Duguyu. Duguyu raised his head to look at the Dao Yi City in front of him. In the next moment, he gently stomped his right foot. Boom! The city wall in front of him suddenly collapsed. Countless people in the city were shocked. Someone had come to attack the Dao Yi Academy. Soon, the first elder appeared outside the Dao Yi City. The first elder looked at Duguyu and the others with a cold expression. "Who are you? Why have you come to attack the Dao Yi City?" Duguyu replied calmly, "The Dugu family." The Dugu family. Hearing this, the first elder's expression changed slightly. The Dugu family had come after all. Duguyu glanced at the first elder. The Dugu family has no intention of becoming enemies with the Dao Yi Academy. However, Yi Xian is the son of a trader of the Dugu family, and he possesses the Dugu family's most valuable treasure. Therefore, the Dugu family must bring him back. Hand him over. The first elder said in a deep voice, Yi Xian is no longer a student of the Dao Yi Academy. As for his current whereabouts, the Dao Yi Academy does not know either. Hearing this, Duguyu narrowed his eyes. It seems that the Dao Yi Academy is still going to protect him. The first elder looked at Duguyu. Sir, he is indeed no longer a student of the Dao Yi Academy. Duguyu sneered. Since the Dao Yi Academy is unwilling to give the Dugu family face, then don't blame us for being impolite. With that, he disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the first elder's expression changed drastically. He slammed his right hand forward. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded in the air, and the first elder retreated. At this time, 4 figures appeared behind the first elder, and in the next moment, 4 pitch-black chains pierced through the first elder's limbs. At this time, the Dao Yi Academy's experts rushed out, but when they saw the first elder being restrained, they stopped and dared not make a move. In the air, the first elder stared at Duguyu. Sir, you are, Duguyu waved his hand. The old man has no interest in wasting time with you. Let Yi Xian come out, or the Dao Yi Academy will disappear from this world. The first elder sneered. How arrogant. Then, he looked at the Dao Yi Academy's experts. Attack. The experts hesitated, and the first elder roared, Attack. At this time, Duguyu suddenly said, It's not easy for you to cultivate until now. Why would you sacrifice so many years of hard work for Yi Xian? As long as the Dao Yi Academy hands over Yi Xian, we will retreat immediately. An expert from the Dao Yi Academy said in a low voice, Sir, Yi Xian is no longer a student of the Dao Yi Academy. As for his current location, we don't know either. Duguyu said indifferently, the old man doesn't believe it. Hearing this, the expert's face darkened. Is the Dugu family going too far? Duguyu snorted coldly. Going too far? The Dugu family sent people here, but they died tragically in the northern region. At that time, did you think this day would come? Then, he looked around coldly. 3 days. If Yi Xian doesn't show up in 3 days, the Dugu family will bury the entire Dao Yi city and Dao Yi Academy with him. As soon as Duguyu's voice fell, the 4 figures nearby suddenly disappeared, and the first elder's limbs were sent flying. Blood spurted like a fountain. On the ground, the first elder's expression was grim. Inform the dean. Recall the Dao soldiers. In the distance, Duguyu turned to look at a figure beside him. Inform the master to destroy the Dao Yi Academy. The figure quietly retreated. End of this chapter. Chapter 396. Yi Xian sat silently within the hall, and a golden stream of air radiated from his body. This continued for an unknown period of time before the golden stream of air suddenly surged into his body. In an instant, Yi Xian's skin turned golden like gold. Golden body. Invincible golden body. Yi Xian stood up and clenched his fists tightly. Crack. The hall around him collapsed. At the same time, the ground beneath his feet cracked layer by layer, and the cracks spread in all directions. Power. At that moment, Yi Xian felt like his entire body was filled with power, boundless power. At that moment, he was confident that he could fight the dragon from before. What a terrifying ability. Yi Xian was slightly amazed. Such an ability could be described as heaven-defying. After all, he was only at the void-piercing realm right now, but if he used the invincible golden body, any origin realm expert would be nothing before him. At this moment, a golden seal suddenly appeared in front of him. The Earth God Seal. Yi Xian said solemnly, What's the use of this Earth God Seal? Jian Zizai said indifferently, It's even more useful than your invincible golden body. This seal contains the qi of the mountains and rivers, as well as the qi of the sun, moon, and stars gathered by the God Kings. It's not just a type of qi, but it also contains the laws of the great ways of the God Kings. If you activate it, the power will be enough to destroy the world. Yi Xian was slightly excited, really? Jian Zizai continued, however, with your current strength, the backlash from activating the Earth God's seal will be even more severe than the backlash from the pagoda of prison. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "Why? Could it be that the Earth God's seal is even more terrifying than the pagoda of prison?" Jian Zizai said, "The Earth God's seal isn't bad, but it's naturally worlds apart from this pagoda. However, you have to understand that this pagoda recognizes you as its master. Although it's in a deep slumber, its instinctive consciousness won't harm you. However, the Earth God's seal is different. It hasn't recognized you as its master, so if you forcefully activate it, it's equivalent to dying with it." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Just as he had expected, a treasure of this level wasn't something he could control right now. Just like the World Prison Pagoda, using this was equivalent to perishing together with the enemy. At this time, Jian Zizai said, "Although you can't use this item for the time being, it has two other effects. These two effects are of great benefit to you right now. One of them is the evil suppressing seal, which can suppress all evils. This seal contains draconic energy, and it's the draconic energy of a divine emperor. It's the nemesis of ordinary evil beings." Yi Xian quickly asked, "What's the second function?" Jian Zizai said, "The dragon chi in this seal is a great deterrent to ordinary demonic beasts, especially in your star domain. Among the demonic beasts in this star domain, giant dragons are already the top demonic beasts. Therefore, your dragon chi is almost unstoppable in this star domain. However, there are some special ones that don't fear your dragon chi." Yi Xian nodded. "It's already very good." For him, it was already very satisfying. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression changed. His body suddenly trembled violently. Soon, a flow of air spread out from his body, and not long after, his whole body fell straight down. Soft. At this moment, he had no strength in his body at all. He didn't even have the strength to move a finger. Yi Xian was shocked. "This is..." Jian Zizai said, "The side effect of the invincible golden body. No, it should be said that your strength is too low, and you can't perfectly control this divine power. If you use this divine power now, you can at most maintain it for an hour. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. After an hour, you will be like you are now." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. This divine power couldn't be used carelessly. About an hour later, Yi Xian's body had completely recovered. He left the hall, and as soon as he left this world, he received a voice transmission from Xiaogu. In the starry sky, Yi Xian put away the voice transmission stone. His expression was frighteningly cold. The next moment, he boarded the nebula warship and disappeared into the boundless starry sky. Dao Yi City. A storm was brewing in Dao Yi City. For so many years, no one had dared to provoke Dao Yi Academy. But now, there was. The Dugu family. This was a great family from the Qian domain. The people of Dao Yi City didn't know much about this family, but they knew one thing about Dao Yi: this family came from the Qian domain. That was enough. For a moment, everyone in Dao Yi City felt insecure. Many people had even quietly left Dao Yi City. Dao Yi Academy had also recalled its experts. The entire Dao Yi Academy was on high alert. Outside Dao Yi City, Duguyu stood quietly. Behind him were three black-clothed men. The three of them were like shadows, incomparably ghostly. At noon, Duguyu suddenly opened his eyes and glanced at Dao Yi City. "Time's up." As Duguyu's voice fell, 26 people suddenly appeared behind Duguyu. These 26 people were all wearing black armor and wielding long blades. All 26 of them were Origin Realm experts. In addition, there were two white-robed elders standing 1,000 feet behind these 26 people. The two elders had no aura at all, and their realms were unknown. Outside the city, Duguyu glanced at Dao Yi City. "This is your last chance. Will Dao Yi Academy hand over Yi Xian?" At this moment, the great elder appeared on top of the city wall. At this moment, his limbs were still missing. Although it was a simple matter for an expert like him to regrow limbs, it still depended on what caused it. Clearly, the four shadows had some special methods, so the Grand Elder wasn't able to regrow his limbs. On the city wall, the Grand Elder coldly stared at Dugu. Dugu family, I've already said that Yi Xian isn't in my Dao Yi Academy. Dugu said indifferently, kill. With that, the three shadows behind him were about to attack. But at this moment, an old man suddenly appeared on the city wall. Seeing this old man, the Grand Elder and the others on the city wall immediately let out a sigh of relief. Dean. The person in front of them was the Dean of Dao Yi Academy, Mu Qingming. And beside Mu Qingming stood a little girl, Yi Ling. The current Yi Ling was already in the origin realm. Yi Ling quietly stood beside Mu Qingming. Seeing Mu Qingming, Duguyu's eyes slightly narrowed. I think you should be the Dean of Dao Yi Academy. Mu Qingming glanced at Dugu and the others. My Dao Yi Academy doesn't seem to have any grudges with the Dugu family. Dugu said indifferently, there are no grudges. This time, I only came for two people, Yi Xian and Yi Ling. If Dao Yi Academy hand over these two people, we will immediately leave. Beside Mu Qingming, Yi Ling looked at Dugu, but she didn't say anything. Mu Qingming chuckled, the Dugu family is a big family in Heaven Domain, but my Dao Yi Academy isn't a place that people can casually bully. Dugu was expressionless. It seems that Dao Yi Academy is preparing to fight to the death with my Dugu family. Mu Qingming was about to speak, but at this time, Dugu's expression changed. This chapter is not finished, please flip the page. In the next moment, the two old men who were 100 zhang away suddenly walked out and directly arrived in front of Mu Qingming. Seeing these two people, Mu Qingming's complexion immediately changed. Supreme Realm. These two people were both at the Supreme Realm. At this moment, Mu Qingming knew that the Dugu family wasn't joking. For the sake of Yi Xian and Yi Ling, the Dugu family didn't hesitate to start a war with the Dao Yi Academy. Thinking of this, Mu Qingming's complexion sank. Below, Dugu said, Dean Mu, my Dugu family knows that your Dao Yi Academy still has some trump cards. For example, your Dao Yi Academy's ancestor, Dao Yi, left behind a strand of divine soul. Saying this, he smiled faintly, Dean Mu, you can summon this strand of divine soul and see if it can stop my Dugu family. On the city wall, Mu Qingming said in a deep voice, are these two siblings really that important to your Dugu family? Dugu said faintly, this has nothing to do with Dean Mu. Now, Dean Mu can declare his position. If you want to fight, then fight immediately. If you want peace, then ask Dean Mu to hand over Yi Xian and Yi Ling. On the city wall, Mu Qingming looked at the two old men in front of him. Both of them were at the Supreme Realm. He was confident that he could defeat one of them, but if the two of them joined hands, he would be restrained. At that time, the Dao Yi Academy would be in great danger. If the Dao Yi Academy lost, there would be no Dao Yi Academy in this world. If the Dao Yi Academy won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Moreover, there would also be no Dao Yi Academy in this world. Because the Pyrrhic victory of the Dao Yi Academy would be greatly reduced in strength. At that time, even if the Dugu family didn't make a move, the forces of the Northern Territory would still devour the Dao Yi Academy. This was a battle that couldn't be won. Thinking of this, Mu Qingming slowly closed his eyes. The scene immediately quieted down. And at this time, Yi Ling, who was not far away, suddenly said in a soft voice, Master will hand me over to them, right? Mu Qingming looked at Yi Ling. Yi Ling grinned, I won't blame Master. Mu Qingming asked, why? Yi Ling said in a soft voice, Big Brother told me that a person can't be too selfish and can only think of himself. The Academy doesn't owe us siblings anything, and Master also doesn't owe me anything. Moreover, they are targeting me and Big Brother. In the end, it was me and Big Brother who implicated the Academy. This is the matter of us siblings. After saying that, she turned around and looked at Dugu. I'll go back with you. Let go of my Big Brother, okay? Dugu glanced at Yi Ling and said indifferently, take him away. In an instant, four black chains directly locked Yi Ling. On the city wall, Mu Qingming wanted to make a move, but the two old men in front of him had already locked their auras on him. Mu Qingming's complexion was somewhat unsightly. He hesitated again and again, but in the end, he didn't make a move. As for Yi Ling, she slightly lowered her head. No one knew what she was thinking. Below, an old man beside Duguyu said, "Kill her?" Duguyu shook his head, "Bring her back and imprison her together with her mother. I believe that if that woman sees her, her expression will definitely be very marvelous. Moreover, with this girl here, that Yi Xian will definitely appear." The old man slightly nodded. Soon, a shadow took Yi Ling and disappeared from the top of the city wall. And on the city wall, a small wooden person quietly fell down. This wooden person was exactly the same as Yi Xian. P.S. Yesterday, I received a piece of news. One of my peers, who was also writing, suddenly died. This isn't a joke. This profession often stays up late, lives are irregular, and it is especially easy for the body to have problems. Every profession is not easy. Let's all work hard together. End of this chapter. Chapter 397. On the city wall, Mu Qingming was silent. He really liked Yi Ling and had always been training her as the next dean of Dao Yi Academy. It would be a lie to say that he had no feelings for her. However, he had no choice. Dao Yi Academy was inferior to Dugu family. This was a fact. Moreover, Dao Yi Academy did not only have Yi Ling. As the dean, he had to consider more students. Thus, he could not make a move. If he made a move, Dao Yi Academy would be consigned to eternal damnation. Just like this, Yi Ling was taken away by the experts of Dugu family. Below, the great elder wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he did not say anything. Thinking from another perspective, he knew that Mu Qingming could not make a move. Although this was a disgrace to Dao Yi Academy. Nothing could be done because the other party was strong. Their strength was inferior, so there was nothing they could do. Outside the city, Duguyu coldly looked at Mu Qingming and the others, Dean Mu, that Yi Xian. At this moment, a sword cry resounded from the horizon. Everyone turned to look and saw a sword light flying over from the horizon. Soon, the sword light landed in front of the gate of Dao Yi City. The sword light dispersed, revealing Yi Xian. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at Mu Qingming beside the great elder. "Are you the dean?" Mu Qingming sized up Yi Xian and nodded. Yi Xian was delighted and quickly asked, "Dean Mu, where is my little sister?" Little sister. After parting from Azure World, he had not seen Yi Ling for a long time. He missed her very much. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mu Qingming turned silent. Seeing this, Yi Xian frowned and an ominous feeling rose in his heart. "Dean, did something happen?" Next to Mu Qingming, the great elder sighed. Yi Ling was taken away by Dugu family. Taken away. Down below, Yi Xian was stunned. In the next moment, he roared furiously, "How could you let her be taken away?" On the city wall, an old man from the Dao Yi Academy said coldly, "If we don't let her be taken away, are we supposed to keep her company?" Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly rose from the ground, and then the old man who spoke was blasted away. This flight covered a distance of several thousand feet. When it stopped, the old man's body exploded. Seeing this, the faces of the Dao Yi Academy experts fell. On the city wall, Mu Qingming looked at Yi Xian in shock. He knew a thing or two about Yi Xian. He knew that Yi Xian was very talented, but he didn't expect Yi Xian to be so strong. Yi Xian's expression was ferocious as he roared, "Dao Yi Academy doesn't want to implicate Dao Yi Academy because of her. This father fucking understands, but why did you hand her over to Dugu family? Why? If you can't protect her, then say so earlier. I, Yi Xian, will protect her myself." Mu Qingming said in a deep voice, "This matter is very important." Old man, in the distance, Yi Xian laughed at himself, "It's my fault. I shouldn't have handed my little sister over to anyone. I should have taken care of her myself." After saying that, he turned to look at Duguyu. Duguyu coldly stared at Yi Xian. will you go back with me, or should I bring your head back? Yi Xian's expression was ferocious. I, Yi Xian, swear on my soul to the heavens that I will destroy Dugu family with all my strength. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared on the spot. Chi! A tearing sound echoed in the battlefield. When Yi Xian reappeared, he was already in front of Dugu. In the next moment, a sword light slashed towards Dugu. Life and death decided by unsheathing sword. After his body was tempered by the dragon blood, this life and death decided by unsheathing sword had undergone a qualitative change. The power of life and death decided by unsheathing sword had undergone a qualitative change. As the sword fell, the space around Dugu cracked into a web. Under this sword, Dugu's expression changed. He was terrified. He didn't expect Yi Xian's sword to be so terrifying. Not only did Dugu not expect it, but everyone else also didn't expect it. Everyone was stunned by this strike. Dugu brought his hands together before Yi Xian, and a golden energy swept out from his hands. In an instant, Yi Xian's sword strike was engulfed. A moment of silence. Boom! Under the watchful eyes of countless people, the golden energy instantly shattered, and a figure was sent flying. This figure was Dugu. As he flew, Dugu's body started to crack inch by inch. When he stopped, only his soul remained. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they saw this scene. After all, Dugu was a peak origin realm expert. However, Yi Xian had shattered his body with just a single sword strike. Even Dugu himself was stunned. One sword strike. He didn't expect that he couldn't even take a single sword strike from Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from where he was. Dugu, who was already a soul, had a change of expression as he retreated rapidly. Yi Xian was even faster, and he arrived before Dugu again. However, with a flash of a black shadow, he returned to his original spot. In front of Dugu stood an old man. A supreme realm. The old man stared at Yi Xian. A great sword immortal, and his battle prowess far surpasses ordinary great sword immortals. Nearby, Dugu roared angrily, "Kill him! Kill him!" At this moment, his respect for Yi Xian turned into fear. A deep fear. Yi Xian was too monstrous. Even the Dugu family didn't dare to let such a monster continue to grow. In front of Yi Xian, the old man's eyes gradually turned cold. Clearly, the talent and battle prowess that Yi Xian displayed made him feel fear. Right now, he wasn't afraid of Yi Xian at all. However, Yi Xian was still young. Too young. The old man raised his right hand, and a black chain quietly condensed in his hand. In the next moment, this black chain pierced through space and shot towards Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian didn't retreat, but advanced instead. He took a step forward, drew his sword, and slashed. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion resounded. Yi Xian retreated rapidly, and the black chain firmly blocked Yi Xian's sword. At the same time, a wave of black energy continuously corroded towards Yi Xian. "Be careful, it's the aura of death." At this moment, the voice of the god on the second floor rang in Yi Xian's mind. The aura of death. Yi Xian hurriedly mobilized the qi of chaos. With the appearance of the qi of chaos, the black aura of death instantly disappeared without a trace. Yi Xian stopped. In the distance, the old man stared at him. "You can actually block my aura of death." Yi Xian didn't reply. He leaped up and charged towards the old man again. Fighting the supreme realm. Seeing this scene, the old man's face turned cold. "Old man, let's see how monstrous you are." As soon as he finished speaking, he lightly stomped his right foot. Boom! The entire sky shook violently, and countless spatial forces crushed towards Yi Xian like a tidal wave. In the surroundings, no one could see where Yi Xian was, because the space where Yi Xian was already distorted. Sensing the surrounding spatial forces, Yi Xian was shocked. He didn't dare to be careless, and he hurriedly took out the Space Dao Law. In the next moment, he stomped his right foot. He stomped his foot. Break. As soon as he spoke, the space Tao law between his eyebrows trembled slightly. In the next moment, the surrounding spatial forces instantly disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the entire sky returned to normal. Seeing this, the old man in front of Yi Xian narrowed his eyes in disbelief. How is this possible? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the next moment, a sword light slashed down from the old man's head. This sword was extremely fast. In front of Yi Xian, the old man smiled coldly and waved his sleeve. Boom! With a loud explosion, Yi Xian was sent flying hundreds of feet away. The old man didn't attack again. He stared at Yi Xian. How did you do it? He was still extremely shocked that Yi Xian had easily broken his spatial forces. It should be known that although void-piercing realm powerhouses could control the power of space, this control was not at the same level as the power of space he had just displayed. However, Yi Xian had easily broken his spatial forces. It was not normal. In the distance, Yi Xian was silent. With his current strength, under normal circumstances, he would definitely not be able to beat a supreme realm expert. The strength of the person in front of him was not much weaker than the Lord of the Realm Defense Alliance. Under normal circumstances, he couldn't beat him. However, even if he couldn't beat him, he had to fight. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Second floor God, can you help me? Please." Now, he didn't want to waste time here because his sister had fallen into the hands of others. He had to quickly get rid of the people here. After a moment of silence, the second floor God said, "Yes. However, I will only make a move this time. My vitality has not completely recovered, so I can't attack too much." Hearing this, Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Thank you." As he spoke, he looked up at Du Guyu below. In the next moment, he turned into a sword light and rushed towards Du Guyu. Not far away, Du Guyu's expression changed drastically. He retreated rapidly, and the old man was about to attack. At this moment, an illusory figure suddenly appeared in front of the old man. Second floor God. Seeing the second floor God, the old man was stunned, and then said, "Who are you?" At this moment, the second floor God waved his right claw. Boom! The old man was directly sent flying hundreds of meters away. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. Below, Yi Xian had already appeared in front of Du Guyu. Du Guyu, who was already in soul form, could be said to be unable to fight back in front of Yi Xian. Chi! Under the gazes of countless people, Yi Xian's sword pierced through Du Guyu's soul. In the next moment, Du Guyu's soul started to gradually turn illusory. Du Guyu stared fixedly at Yi Xian and roared like a wild beast, "Yi Xian, you'll be accompanying the old man soon." "You?" Yi Xian laughed savagely, "Accompany you? Don't worry, you won't be lonely. I'll make everyone in the Du Gu family accompany you." As soon as he finished speaking, he slashed diagonally. Chi! Du Guyu's soul instantly vanished without a trace. After he killed Du Guyu, Yi Xian turned to look at the 20 people in the distance. In the next moment, he charged towards them. Kill! The 20 people charged towards Yi Xian as well. On the city wall, an old man by Mu Qingming's side said in a low voice, "He must be stopped. If he kills these people, then the Du Gu family will definitely vent their anger on our Dao Yi Academy." Mu Qingming glanced at the distant Yi Xian, and he hesitated for a moment before saying, "Stop." Chapter 398. Stop. Not far away, Yi Xian stopped and turned his head to look at Mu Qingming. The latter said gravely, "Yi Xian, doing this is tantamount to cutting off the path between yourself and the Dugu family." Yi Xian sneered, "Dean Mu, do you think that the Dugu family will let me off? Will they?" Mu Qingming said, "Yi Xian, if you kill them here, the Dugu family will be furious, and it will bring a calamity to Dao Yi City." Yi Xian's smile grew increasingly savage. Then according to Dean Mu, what should I do? Surrender? Mu Qingming was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said, Dean Mu, this is a matter between me and the Dugu family. Since you can't make them stop, you'd better shut up. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and charged towards the group of experts from the Dugu clan. Seeing this scene, Mu Qingming's expression sank, but in the end, he didn't say anything. At this moment, he realized that the Dao Yi Academy couldn't afford to offend the Dugu family, but this Yi Xian didn't seem to be simple either. This was because the second-floor god had single-handedly blocked two supreme realm powerhouses. In the distance, Yi Xian fought against over 20 origin realm experts all by himself. Right from the beginning, Yi Xian was at an absolute disadvantage. However, before long, the origin realm experts became rather surprised. Because they noticed that Yi Xian's body was too formidable. It was so strong that it could resist their strength. Aside from that, Yi Xian's sword was extremely terrifying. None of the origin realm experts could withstand a single strike from Yi Xian. Killing intent surged in Yi Xian's heart when he thought about how Yi Ling's fate was unknown. A sword box suddenly appeared behind him, and in the next moment, a sword flew out. In the blink of an eye, an origin realm expert several dozen meters to his right was beheaded. Saint rank flying sword. The expressions of the experts from the Dugu clan changed drastically when they saw this. Yi Xian was holding a saint rank flying sword, and it wasn't an ordinary one. And now, Yi Xian had another one. Since when were saint rankers so common? Very soon, the origin realm experts died one by one, until only 12 remained. Yi Xian had slain 8 of them. As for the 2 supreme experts, they were still being held back by the second-floor guru. The second-floor guru was fighting 1 against 2 and was not at a disadvantage at all. On the city wall, Yi Xian, who was not far from Mu Qingming and the others, had an incomparably grave expression. They had never thought that Yi Xian would actually be able to fend off over 20 origin realm experts all by himself. After all, Yi Xian was only at the void-piercing realm right now. A monster. Far too much of a monster. The Grand Elder beside Mu Qingming growled, it's a pity that our Dao Yi Academy can't protect the 2 of them. Otherwise, our Dao Yi Academy will definitely be able to return to its former glory with the 2 of them. Mu Qingming said softly, it's a pity that our Dao Yi Academy can't keep them. The Grand Elder nodded. He admired Yi Xian as well. However, it seemed like Yi Xian was facing far too many problems right now. These problems would bring disaster to the Dao Yi Academy. At this moment, a miserable shriek suddenly rang out in the distance. Everyone looked over and saw that there were only 3 origin realm experts left before Yi Xian. Beside Yi Xian was a pile of corpses. The 3 remaining origin realm experts did not choose to continue fighting. Instead, they chose to flee. This was because they knew very well that continuing to fight would only be sending them to their deaths. However, Yi Xian did not choose to let them go. Instead, he chased after them. Around 15 minutes later, Yi Xian returned to the city walls. His sword was still bleeding. Kill them all. In the air, the second-floor goddess suddenly stopped. She retreated to Yi Xian's side. The 2 old men did not dare to continue fighting either. They were extremely fearful of the second-floor goddess. One of the old men glanced at the second-floor goddess deeply before looking down. When he saw the corpses on the ground, his face immediately sank. In the end, he looked at Yi Xian, how dare you kill the people of my Dugu family? Below, Yi Xian raised his head to look at the old man. He grinned. His smile was rather insane. Kill the people of your Dugu family? This is only the beginning. I'll kill everyone in your Dugu family. The old man's expression became rather vicious. Just you? With that, he was about to attack, but at this moment, the second-floor goddess suddenly said, "Scram." Hearing the second-floor goddess's words, the old man's expression immediately became rather ugly. He glanced at the second-floor goddess, but in the end, he chose not to attack. Because he was not confident. Moreover, he could feel that from the beginning until now, this mysterious beast before him had not used its full strength. The other party was still hiding its strength. After a moment of silence, the old man glanced coldly at Yi Xian below. The old man will wait for you at the Duge family. If you don't come in 3 days, my Duge family will make your mother and sister suffer a fate worse than death. With that, he and the other old man directly turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Next to Yi Xian, the second-floor goddess glanced at Yi Xian before disappearing on the spot. With a wave of his right hand, Yi Xian collected the storage rings of the corpses on the ground. He then turned around and left. At this moment, the first elder suddenly said, Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. The first elder solemnly asked, where are you going? Yi Xian indifferently replied, where do you think I will go, first elder? The first elder solemnly said, Yi Xian, the Duge family is not ordinary. You must not be impulsive. Yi Xian said nothing and quickly disappeared into the distance. The first elder softly sighed. What happened in Dao Yi City quickly spread throughout the northern region, and so did the 2 words Yi Xian. One person killed over 20 origin realm cultivators. Moreover, Yi Xian was only at the void-piercing realm. The departure of Yi Xian and his sister was a great blow to the reputation of the Dao Yi Academy. Everyone knew that the Dao Yi Academy had abandoned Yi Xian and his sister out of fear of the Duge family from the Heaven region. In the past, countless young geniuses of the northern region wanted to become students of the Dao Yi Academy, but now, many people no longer thought so. What was the point of joining an academy that couldn't even protect its students? When the Dao Yi Academy learned of this negative impact, Mu Qingming and the others' expressions became extremely unsightly. They considered the consequences of protecting Yi Xian and his sister, but they didn't consider the consequences of abandoning Yi Xian and his sister to the Dao Yi Academy. However, Mu Qingming didn't regret his decision. Because if they protected Yi Xian, they would not only lose their reputation, but also the entire Dao Yi Academy. If they lost their reputation, they could slowly earn it back. But if the Dao Yi Academy was gone, what was the point of having a good reputation? Outside the Dao Yi city, a woman walked over. When she arrived in front of the city gate, she glanced at the Dao Yi city. At this time, she stopped and listened attentively. Beside the city gate, there were people talking. After a while, the woman softly said, so you have already left the Dao Yi Academy. It seems that this queen doesn't need to go to the Dao Yi Academy. After saying that, she turned around and left. Not long after the woman left, another woman came to the Dao Yi city. This woman wore a white dress and didn't have a speck of dust on her. At this time, the dean of the Dao Yi Academy, Mu Qingming, suddenly appeared in front of the city gate. Looking at the woman in front of him, Mu Qingming said in surprise, Little Un, why did you come back at this time? The woman in front of him was Enlancio. Enlancio looked at Mu Qingming. Did the dean abandon the siblings? Mu Qingming solemnly said, I have no other choice. Enlancio slightly nodded, I understand. After saying that, she turned around and left. Mu Qingming asked, where are you going? Enlancio softly said, from now on, I am no longer a student of the Dao Yi Academy. Hearing this, Mu Qingming's expression changed. Why? Because of the siblings? Enlancio said, I brought Yiling to the Dao Yi Academy, but the academy directly handed her over to the Duge clan. After saying that, she slightly shook her head. I can understand that the Dao Yi Academy doesn't want to offend the Duge clan for the siblings, but they shouldn't have handed her over to the Duge clan like this. This matter, the academy was wrong. I'll take my leave. After saying that, she directly disappeared. In front of the city gate, Mu Qingming's expression was extremely ugly. In the entire Dao Yi Academy, the 3 most monstrous people were the siblings Yi Xian and Enlancio. But now, the 3 most monstrous people had left. Mu Qingming raised his head to look at the distant horizon, his eyes somewhat vacant. Now, he was somewhat confused about the future of the Dao Yi Academy. At this moment, he was somewhat doubtful, doubting his decision at that time. After a while, he softly sighed and turned around to leave. After Yi Xian left the Dao Yi city, he immediately took the Starcloud warship and rushed to the Heaven Domain. Heaven Domain. Yi Ling was brought to the Duga clan of the Heaven Domain. Now, he was burning with anxiety. Because he didn't know how the Duga clan would treat Yi Ling Duga clan. On the deck of the Starcloud warship, Yi Xian quietly stood, his expression extremely gloomy, and his sword case was still on his back. Duga clan. These 3 words, from the Dao East City until now, he had silently recited them in his heart at least 1,000 times. At this moment, a black-robed person suddenly appeared in front of his Starcloud warship. Yi Xian stopped. The black-robed person looked at Yi Xian, his expression somewhat complicated. Young master. Yi Xian slightly frowned. Young master? The black-robed person said in a deep voice, I am the young lady's housekeeper, called Duga Yen. Duga clan. On Yi Xian's back, the sword case slightly trembled. At this moment, Duga Yen hurriedly said, Young master, I have no malice towards you. Yi Xian said, The young lady you mentioned, is she? The black-robed person softly sighed. Young master, I know you have always resented the young lady, resenting her for leaving you and your sister at that time, but the young lady also had her own difficulties. If she didn't leave in advance, once the Duga clan found out about you and your sister, you would have died at that time. Speaking up to here, he looked at Yi Xian. Do you know, in order to protect you and your sister, the young lady is still imprisoned in that dark purgatory. Chapter 399. On the Starcloud warship, Yi Xian stood quietly and didn't speak. Duga Yen glanced at Yi Xian and said, Miss left you and your sister because she owes you, but she had no choice. In order to protect you and your sister, she had to leave you. Yi Xian shook his head. Now, I just want to save my sister. Duga Yen sighed. Young master, don't you care about Miss? Yi Xian was silent. As for that woman, he had almost forgotten what she looked like. Duga Yen said again, Young master. Yi Xian shook his head. Just take me to the Duga family. Now, I just want to save my sister. There was only one thought in his mind. That was to save his sister. Duga Yen glanced at Yi Xian. If you go to the Duga family like this, you will die. Yi Xian said, Just lead the way. Duga Yen sighed and didn't say anything else. The Starcloud warship was getting faster and faster. 2 days later, Yi Xian's Starcloud warship arrived at a place called the 1,000-Star City because there was a teleportation array in this city that led to the Heaven Domain. The entire never-ending star region was very big. If the 3 domains didn't use teleportation arrays, with the speed of the Starcloud warship, they wouldn't be able to reach the Heaven Domain in a year. Yi Xian and Duga Yen got off the Starcloud warship and went straight to the city. On the way, Duga Yen said, In the Heaven Domain, the most powerful person is the never-ending palace. This mysterious force is the master of the Heaven Domain, and the palace master of the never-ending palace is unfathomable. In addition, under the never-ending palace, there are the boundless Holy Land and the North and South martial sects. Under these 2 sects, there are 3 major families, and the Duga family is one of them. At this point, he looked at Yi Xian. The Duga family has a wide network in the Heaven Domain. They have 5 Supreme Realm experts. Apart from that, they also have a mysterious Shadow Soldier army. Each of these Shadow Soldier army is a top expert. Young master, your talent is not bad, and your strength is even more shocking. However, if you want to fight against the entire Duga family by yourself, that's impossible. Yi Xian said nothing. Duga Yen smiled bitterly. In this period of time, he had already persuaded countless times, but Yi Xian did not listen. Going to the Duga family like this is akin to throwing away your life. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, Then what do you think we should do? Take time to think about it? Will my sister still be alive after a long consideration? Duga Yen said solemnly, But if you go like this, you're merely going to throw your life away. Yi Xian said softly, Even if I die, I won't let her be alone. With that, he quickened his pace. Behind Yi Xian, Duga Yen sighed softly. Soon, Yi Xian arrived at a transmission formation. After paying the transmission fee, he was about to enter it. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly came from afar. Wait! As the voice fell, the teleportation formation beneath Yi Xian's feet immediately fell silent. Yi Xian turned around. Not far in front of him, a middle-aged man and 4 old men walked towards him. On the left side of the middle-aged man's chest, there was a small, Yun character. The middle-aged man walked in front of Yi Xian and sized up Yi Xian. He said coldly, "You're Yi Xian? My Yun family's items." At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. The next moment, a sword slashed down from the middle-aged man's head. The middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He did not expect Yi Xian to suddenly attack. Caught off guard, he could only block hastily. Boom! With an explosion, the middle-aged man was sent flying hundreds of meters away. At this moment, his physical body had already been destroyed, leaving only his soul. The middle-aged man stood rooted to the ground, and the 4 old men he had brought were also somewhat dumbfounded. This Yi Xian was so powerful? Yi Xian did not attack again. Instead, he returned to the teleportation formation and turned to the side. Send me to the heaven domain. An old man walked out from where Yi Xian was looking. He looked deeply at Yi Xian and was about to speak. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly said angrily, "Yi Xian, leave behind my Yun family's treasure. Otherwise, my Yun family will." At this moment, Yi Xian, who was on the teleportation formation, suddenly turned around and roared angrily, "To hell with your ancestors." With that, he disappeared on the spot with a whoosh. In the distance, the middle-aged man, who was already a soul, was shocked. He was about to attack when a sword light pierced through his forehead. Whoosh! In an instant, the middle-aged man's soul disappeared. A single strike to the soul. This time, Yi Xian did not return to the teleportation formation. Instead, he charged towards the 4 experts beside him. In less than 15 minutes, there were 4 more corpses on the ground. Instant kill. At the moment, Yi Xian was giving off a strong killing intent. It was extremely strong. Yi Xian turned around and glanced at the old man in charge of the teleportation formation nearby. The latter hurriedly said, "This has nothing to do with us." Yi Xian did not attack. He walked onto the teleportation formation, and Du Guyan hurriedly followed. Very soon, the 2 of them disappeared into the teleportation formation. Seeing the 2 of them disappear, the old man immediately let out a sigh of relief. I almost got into trouble. After all, the corpses before him were all Origin Realm experts. However, they had been instantly killed just like that. It was an instant kill. This kind of person was definitely not an ordinary person. After who knew how long, Yi Xian heard voices. Very soon, he stopped. At this moment, he was standing on a teleportation formation. Beside him was Du Guyan. Yi Xian said softly, "The heaven region?" Du Guyan shook his head, "It's only the outskirts of the heaven region. However, it will take half a day at most to get to the Dugu family." Yi Xian nodded, "To the Dugu family." Du Guyan hurriedly said, "Your objective is to save your sister, right?" Yi Xian nodded. Du Guyan said, "If we want to save Miss Ling, we should go to the Avicii Purgatory because she should be locked there." Yi Xian asked, "Where is the Avicii Purgatory?" Du Guyan said, "It's a prison." Yi Xian frowned, "The Dugu family?" Du Guyan shook his head, "This Avicii Purgatory doesn't belong to the Dugu family. It's a very mysterious place because no one knows who created it. They only know that it's ownerless and is jointly managed by the 3 great clans. The 3 clans have researched it for many years, but they haven't found anything special about it. As a result, they treat it as a prison to lock up those who have committed crimes in their respective clans." Yi Xian said softly, "Let's go to the Avicii Purgatory." Du Guyan nodded, "I'll lead the way." With that, he disappeared on the spot with Yi Xian. The 2 of them found a Starcloud battleship and entered the boundless outer space. On the deck, Duguyen said, "Young master, this Avicii purgatory isn't simple. Not only are there experts from the 3 clans guarding this place, but it's also rather strange. This prison has a total of 9 levels. Up until now, even Supreme Realm powerhouses did not dare to go to the 9th level. As for what exactly is on the 9th level, only the heads of the clans know." With that, he looked at Yi Xian. "Young lady is locked at the entrance to the 8th level. If young lady Xiaoling is also in this Avicii purgatory, she should be with young lady." Yi Xian nodded, "I understand." Duguyen glanced at Yi Xian, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Young master, rumor has it that there's a super expert behind you." Yi Xian didn't answer. Duguyen smiled bitterly and didn't ask any more. About 2 hours later, the Star Cloud battleship stopped. Duguyen pointed into the distance. Yi Xian looked in the direction where Duguyen was pointing. In the depths of the distant outer space, there was a pitch-black palace. The palace had a strange shape and looked a little like a tower, with a total of 8 levels. Around this palace, it was pitch-black, without a single bit of light. Moreover, even from so far away, Yi Xian could sense an invisible suction force. Beside Yi Xian, Duguyen growled, "There's a black hole in the depths of this place. Regular people can't approach it at all. Even Origin Realm experts can be crushed to pieces if they're not careful." Yi Xian said, "You stay here." With that, Yi Xian left the Star Cloud battleship. At this moment, Duguyen suddenly said, "The elites of the 3 clans are guarding this Avicii purgatory. Don't alarm them, or the experts of the 3 clans will immediately send reinforcements." In the distance, Yi Xian had already vanished. The closer Yi Xian approached the Avicii purgatory, the stronger the suction force became. If it were not for the fact that his body had been tempered by the dragon's blood, it would have been impossible for him to approach the Avicii purgatory with his current level of cultivation. Yi Xian became even more cautious. Before long, he arrived at the entrance to the Avicii purgatory. Of course, he was currently using chaotic qi to hide himself. Even ultimate realm experts would struggle to discover him. He also discovered that there were a few obscure presences in the surroundings of the palace. They were all very powerful. Clearly, they were all experts of the 3 clans. Yi Xian snuck into the palace silently. He knew that he had arrived on the 1st floor. The 1st floor was pitch black, and there were black cages in the surroundings. There were humans and demons in the cages, but they were all on the verge of death as if they had been tortured. Yi Xian did not stop there. He went to the 2nd floor. There were also some cages on the 2nd floor, but there were much fewer of them than on the 1st floor. Besides, the ones locked up on the 2nd floor were much stronger than those on the 1st floor. Very soon, Yi Xian arrived on the 3rd floor. There was an unpleasant smell of blood on the 3rd floor. Blood. Corpses. The entire 3rd floor was covered in blood and corpses. Yi Xian did not stop. He continued downwards and arrived on the 4th floor. The 4th floor was very, very quiet. Yi Xian glanced around. He sensed some auras in the surroundings. The weakest were at the Origin Realm. Yi Xian frowned. Duguyen had said that the Avicii purgatory was used to imprison people who had committed crimes within the 3 clans. Now, it seemed that things were not that simple. This was because he discovered that some of the people imprisoned were not humans at all. Yi Xian did not think too much about it and continued downwards. When he arrived on the 5th floor, Yi Xian's expression changed. There was an extremely powerful aura imprisoned on the 5th floor. Supreme Realm. At this moment, Jian Zizai's voice suddenly rang out. So it's this place. Chapter 400. This place? Yi Xian frowned. What place? Jian Zizai said softly, Avicii Purgatory. Rumor has it that it was created by the underworld god of the underworld king Starfield. Its purpose was to imprison the underworld king Starfield's greatest enemy, the divine race. Divine race? Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. Are they all gods? Jian Zizai sneered. What gods? It's just a title they gave themselves. Speaking to this point, she paused slightly. However, there are indeed many powerful experts in this race. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to dominate the All-Heaven starfield back then. Yi Xian said, Are they still there? Jian Zizai said indifferently, They're all gone. This Underworld King starfield is also gone. Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. Why is it gone? Jian Zizai said, If one is too powerful, they will lose themselves. Back then, the divine race dominated the All-Heaven starfield. How arrogant were they? Speaking to this point, she paused slightly, then continued, This Avicii purgatory was created by the underworld god back then. Many experts of the divine race are imprisoned inside. I don't know why it ended up here. In short, this thing is not a simple thing. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, How does this thing compare to my world prison pagoda? Are you a pig? Jian Zizai suddenly said, Are you sure your brain isn't that of a pig? Yi Xian was speechless. Jian Zizai said again, This Avicii purgatory is indeed extraordinary. However, how can it compare to your world prison pagoda? Yi Xian asked, Why can't it compare? Jian Zizai said, This pagoda of yours is not an object of this universe. It represents a higher martial civilization. You have yet to experience its terror. World Prison Pagoda. Yi Xian was silent. He still didn't understand the pagoda. However, he knew that possessing the pagoda was both a blessing and a curse. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian continued down. Soon, he arrived at the 6th floor. The 6th floor was brightly lit with candlelight. In this 6th floor, there was only a single demonic beast. This demonic beast was shaped like a wolf, but its tail was extremely long like a dragon's tail. Furthermore, there were 2 long horns on its head. These 2 horns were like blades, emitting a chilling aura. Yi Xian did not disturb the demonic beast and continued to walk down. Just as he reached the door, Jian Zizai suddenly said, The heavenly demonic wolf was a demonic beast raised by the god clan in the past. It is extremely fast and powerful. Yi Xian said softly, I can't subdue it. Jian Zizai said, That's true. Yi Xian continued walking down. He could sense how powerful the heavenly demon wolf was. Its aura had surpassed the supreme realm. However, he knew very well that a demonic beast of this level would never submit to him. If he couldn't subdue the other party and alarm the surrounding experts, he would be in deep trouble. Moreover, he only wanted to save his sister. Not long after, Yi Xian arrived at the 7th floor. When he arrived, a cold aura hit him in the face. At the same time, he felt a mysterious aura lock onto him. Yi Xian was shocked. Had someone discovered him? At this moment, a surprised voice came from in front of him. At such a young age, you've already become a great sword immortal, and your body has been tempered by dragon blood. Not bad, not bad. You're qualified to be the old man's disciple. Yi Xian was speechless. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and come over, the voice said again. This chapter is not over. Please continue. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then walked over. Soon, he saw an iron cage. Inside the iron cage sat an old man. The old man's beard and hair were all white, and his hair was as messy as a chicken's nest. The old man looked at Yi Xian and clicked his tongue in wonder. Not bad at all, Yi Xian said, Senior, you are? The old man stood up. Hurry up and kneel to acknowledge me as your master. Yi Xian was speechless. Seeing Yi Xian's silence, the old man said angrily, Brat, do you know who you're standing in front of? You. At this point, he suddenly leaned forward. Save me, and the old man will make you the overlord of this star field. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then shook his head. Senior, can't you come out yourself? The old man's expression suddenly became ferocious, and he said somewhat crazily, If the old man could come out, would I still call you? Yi Xian shook his head. Senior, this place is special. I can't save you. The old man stared at Yi Xian without saying anything. Yi Xian turned to leave. At this moment, the old man suddenly said, "What's concealing your aura is chaotic qi, right?" Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. Yes. The old man said, "If you can have this qi, you must not be an ordinary person." Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "Senior, are you from the Protoss?" The old man said, "Yes." The Protoss. Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something. He suddenly asked, "Senior, do you know Jian Zizai?" The reason why he asked this was because he remembered what the God Emperor had said. Jian Zizai seemed to be the best fighter in the God realm. When he heard Yi Xian's words, the old man's expression instantly changed. He looked at Yi Xian in horror. "How do you know her? How do you know her? Why?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. Why was this guy's reaction so big? At this moment, the old man suddenly stood in front of him and stared at Yi Xian. "How do you know her name? Why?" Yi Xian asked in his heart, "Miss Jian, you seem to be very famous." Jian Zizai said, "Just a so-so." At this moment, the old man in front of Yi Xian said angrily, "Tell me, how do you know her?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, "I know her." Hearing Yi Xian's words, the old man roared, "Impossible, absolutely impossible. How could she know an ant like you? How could she?" Yi Xian said, "I do know her." The old man stared at Yi Xian. After a moment, he said, "Where is she?" Yi Xian said, "Senior, do you know her?" The old man was silent. Yi Xian said, "Senior, if you don't want to say, then I will take my leave." After saying that, he turned around and left. At this moment, the old man suddenly said, "She is the daughter of the Protoss Patriarch." Yi Xian stopped and turned to look at the old man. The old man said, "She was young and had mediocre talent. Moreover, she was a woman. Therefore, she had always been disliked by the Protoss. Even the Patriarch looked down on her. One year, her mother died tragically in the Divine Palace. She knelt in front of the Divine Palace for 3 days and 3 nights, begging the Patriarch to bury her mother in the Divine Palace. However, speaking of this, he laughed at himself. Her mother was just a lowly palace maid. How could she be qualified to be buried in the Divine Palace? Therefore, the Patriarch ignored her. She took her mother's body and left the Protoss. 15 years have passed since I left. Yi Xian asked curiously, "And then?" The old man was silent for a moment. "This chapter is not finished. Please continue." Then he said, "After 15 years, she came back. That day, she challenged the Patriarch in front of the Divine Palace. She personally cut off the head of the strongest Patriarch of the Protoss and hung it above the Divine Palace. Not only that, but almost all the experts of the Protoss were slaughtered by her on that day. Apart from that, my God clan's shrine was burned to the ground by her. At that time, my God clan's vitality was greatly damaged and we declined from then on." Yi Xian was silent. He did not expect that Jian Zizai was really from the Protoss. Moreover, he was so terrifying that he had slaughtered almost all the peak experts of the Protoss. Thinking of this, he broke out in a cold sweat. If it was not for the World Prison Pagoda, would he have died 100 times? At this time, the old man sat on the ground. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. After that, I never saw her again. Speaking of this, he looked at Yi Xian. "Where did you see her?" Yi Xian said softly, "Senior, I still have something to do. I will take my leave first." After saying that, he turned and left. The old man stared at Yi Xian. This time, he did not stop him. On the way to the 8th floor, Yi Xian asked, "Miss Jian, are you from the Protoss?" Jian Zizai said calmly, "Does it have anything to do with you? You can't even handle your own matters, yet you ask about others' matters. You're worrying for nothing." Yi Xian smiled and said, I'm just curious. Very curious. Jian Zizai did not say anything else. Yi Xian did not ask any more questions. He quickened his pace and soon arrived at the entrance to the 8th floor. At the entrance, Yi Xian stopped. He was silent for a moment before entering. Soon, he arrived at the 8th floor. The 8th floor was very quiet. There was a cold and gloomy aura around him. Everything around him was silent. Yi Xian walked forward. At this moment, he was still using the chaotic energy to hide his aura. At this moment, Jian Zizai's voice suddenly sounded. This infernal purgatory is currently in a masterless state. It seems to be in a deep sleep. How about it? Do you want to subdue it? Yi Xian said in a low voice, what do I want this thing for? Jian Zizai thought for a moment and said, although you have the world prison pagoda, it is not something you can control right now. However, you can control this infernal purgatory. If you can control it, you can use it to enter Pluto's star field. Air. At this point, she stopped. Yi Xian was a little wary. Why would I go to Pluto's star field? Jian Zizai said, just treat it as a trip. It's quite nice there. Yi Xian shook his head and ignored Jian Zizai. He continued walking forward. The further he went, the stronger the cold aura became. At this moment, he felt as if his whole body was being pierced by ice. It was a bone-piercing pain. Jian Zizai said again, if you have this infernal purgatory and activate it, you can turn a star field into hell. This pagoda contains an extremely terrifying aura of death. Once it is released, it will be very terrifying. Moreover, if I'm not wrong, there should be a sword in the depths of this infernal purgatory. A sword that can suppress souls and ghosts. If you can obtain it and use it with that soul-setting sword of yours, TSK. At this moment, Yi Xian stopped. Not far in front of him was a long pillar. A woman was tied to the pillar. The woman's limbs were tightly nailed and she could not move at all. Seeing this woman, Yi Xian froze in place. It was a familiar yet unfamiliar face. End of this chapter. Chapter 401. At this moment, the woman on the pillar seemed to sense something. She opened her eyes and looked towards where Yi Xian was standing. When she saw Yi Xian, she was stunned. In the next moment, tears poured out of the woman's eyes. Opposite the woman, Yi Xian stood silently. After about 15 minutes, the woman suddenly said softly, "Come here." Yi Xian fell silent for a while before walking in front of the woman. Looking at Yi Xian, the woman's gaze gradually became somewhat infatuated. A moment later, she said softly, "Do you hate me?" Yi Xian shook his head. Hearing this, more tears flowed down the woman's face. Hate meant that she still had feelings. But not hate, pain. The woman felt a piercing pain in her heart. This pain was hundreds, no, thousands of times worse than the pain she had endured in the endless purgatory. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Don't cry." The woman looked at Yi Xian and shook her head. "I've let you and your sister down. It's me," Yi Xian suddenly said. "I hated you." The woman looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said softly, "When you left, my sister was only a few years old, and I was only 12. At that time, my sister almost starved to death. At that time, I especially hated you. I hated you for leaving us. If you hadn't left, my sister wouldn't have had to suffer so much." Speaking to there, he shook his head and said, "However, after that, I thought about it. I knew that you wouldn't leave for no reason, but whenever I thought about how my little sister had suffered, I couldn't forgive you." The woman's tears continued to flow. "I'm sorry," Yi Xian suddenly said, "but now that I see you, all my hatred has disappeared. I don't know why either." The woman seemed to think of something and hurriedly asked, "Why are you here?" Yi Xian looked around and said, "My sister isn't here." "My sister?" The woman was slightly startled. In the next moment, her expression changed. "They captured Ling Er?" Yi Xian nodded. Hearing that, the woman's face turned cold. Yi Xian said, if it's not here, then it should be at the Dugu family. I'll save you first. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out his celestial spirit sword and was about to break the chains on the woman's body. However, the woman said, it's useless. Yi Xian slashed down with his sword. Chi! The chain did not budge. The woman looked at Yi Xian and said softly, these chains are from the Avicii purgatory. Even a saint-grade treasure would find it difficult to damage them. Leave now and think of a way to save Shaolinger. Go. Yi Xian said in his heart, Miss Jian, can you help me? Jian Zizai was silent for a moment, and then he said, you would have died a long time ago if I could. Let's look for the second floor. At this time, the great god on the second floor said, I can break it, but it will cause too much of a commotion. And now, I can't make a move. Think carefully. Yi Xian was silent. Jian Zizai suddenly said, if you save her, it will definitely alarm the powerhouses of this world. At that time, you will be in a desperate situation. If you don't save her, you won't be able to bear it. Many times, a single thought can bring you two completely different lives. Yi Xian said softly, I know that many times, taking a step back can open up a whole new world. However, if someone bullies your wife and family, do you still have to retreat? I, Yi Xian, know when to advance and when to retreat. However, if anyone bullies my family, I will never retreat. There was a moment of silence. On the second floor, the great god suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The next moment, she clawed down towards Dugu Xian. Boom! The chains around Dugu Xian instantly shattered. However, the commotion was too great. Almost the entire 8th floor shook. After the chains broke, the great god on the second floor glanced at Yi Xian and then returned to the World Prison Pagoda. Meanwhile, Dugu Xian went limp. Yi Xian hurriedly supported her. Dugu Xian grabbed Yi Xian's hand and said weakly, I'm fine. I'm just a little weak. As she said this, she looked at Yi Xian. Let's go. You can go by yourself. If you take me with you, you won't be able to leave this prison. Yi Xian said softly, let's try. As he said this, he supported Dugu Xian and walked up. Dugu Xian grabbed Yi Xian's arm tightly. Looking at Yi Xian, she smiled slightly. Even if I die now, it will be worth it. Yi Xian said, no, you and my sister won't die. Dugu Xian nodded. Just as she was about to speak, 2 old men appeared at the exit not far away. They were both peak origin realm experts. One of the old men frowned when he saw Dugu Xian and Yi Xian. He said coldly, who are you? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished from beside Dugu Xian. In the next moment, there was a flash of light. Hiss! Before the old man could even react, he was cut in half by the light. The remaining old man was shocked. At that moment, he did not choose to fight. Instead, he chose to turn around and flee. How could he still dare to fight after killing an origin realm expert with a single strike? Flee! At this moment, a sword suddenly flew out from the sword box on Yi Xian's back. In the next moment, a streak of light pierced through the old man's back. Hiss! The old man was nailed to the ground. A sliver of surprise flashed through Dugu Xian's eyes as she stood beside Yi Xian. Xian, you're already a great sword immortal? Yi Xian nodded. A smile appeared on Dugu Xian's face, impressive. Just when Yi Xian was about to say something, another middle-aged man suddenly appeared nearby. Dugu Xian stopped Yi Xian just when he was about to strike out. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian before looking at Dugu Xian. Mixed emotions filled his eyes. Dugu Xian said indifferently, second brother, do you want to kill us as well? The middle-aged man shook his head, you won't be able to escape. The experts of the Dugu family, Gu family, and Yan family have already arrived. Dugu Xian turned to look at Yi Xian, you can enter silently, so you should be able to leave silently as well, right? Yi Xian nodded. Dugu Xian stared straight at Yi Xian. Leave here and find a way to save Xiaoling. She looked at the middle-aged man. Is my daughter in the Dugu family? The middle-aged man nodded. In the Dugu family, they wanted to use her too. At this point, he looked at Yi Xian. Let him come to the Dugu family. Dugu Xian looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian suddenly said, let's go. Dugu Xian held on to Yi Xian. She stared at Yi Xian and was about to speak when Yi Xian said softly, let's go. With that, he pulled Dugu Xian out. When he emerged from the infernal purgatory, there were already 3 Supreme Realm experts and over 20 Peak Origin Realm experts at the entrance. Beside Yi Xian, Dugu Xian said softly, the elder on the left is from the Yan clan. The one on the right is from my Dugu clan. His name is Dugu Lai, and he's my third uncle. The one in the middle should be from the Gu clan, the number 1 clan in the heaven domain. Just then, Dugu Lai suddenly looked at Yi Xian and said coldly, you're that vile spawn? Yi Xian looked at Dugu Lai. The latter's face was cold, and just when he was about to speak, Yi Xian took a step forward and pointed his sword at Dugu Lai, one-on-one. One-on-one? Everyone was stunned when they heard Yi Xian's words. Yi Xian was only at the void-piercing realm, yet he wanted to challenge a Supreme Realm expert to one-on-one? Dugu Lai was also slightly stunned. Clearly, he had never thought that Yi Xian would challenge him to one-on-one. After a moment of silence, Dugu Lai sneered, one-on-one? Yi Xian, do you have the right? Yi Xian smiled. In the next moment, he extended his finger, and the head of an Origin Realm expert behind Dugu Lai immediately flew off. Everyone was shocked when they saw this, especially the Origin Realm experts. When they looked at Yi Xian, a sliver of fear appeared in their eyes. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at Dugu Lai, do I have the right? Dugu Lai stared at Yi Xian, since you want to die, I'll give you what you want. With that, he grabbed at Yi Xian from afar with his right hand. With that, the space where Yi Xian resided directly began to distort. A powerful spatial force was about to mince Yi Xian to pieces. At this moment, a void character silently appeared on Yi Xian's forehead. In the blink of an eye, the space around him returned to normal. Dugu Lai and the other 2 immediately frowned when they saw this. They looked at each other, and a sliver of shock appeared in their eyes. It was impossible for void-piercing realm experts to recover space so easily. It was completely impossible. Dugu Lai looked at Yi Xian. Just when he was about to say something, Yi Xian suddenly vanished. In the next moment, a sword appeared above his head, and soon afterwards, a powerful strand of sword chi slashed down from above. Life or death decided by unsheathing the sword. Yi Xian did not hold back when he struck out, nor did he dare to hold back, because he was facing a Supreme Realm expert. A Supreme Realm expert that was 2 whole realms higher than him. Dugu Lai sneered before Yi Xian and waved his hand. Boom! Yi Xian's attack was forcefully blocked, but Yi Xian roared out furiously. He gripped the hilt of his sword with both hands and pushed down. Bang! Dugu Lai took over a dozen steps back. Everyone looked at Yi Xian when they saw this. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. A void-piercing realm expert had forced back a Supreme Realm expert. Dugu Lai was rather shocked. He had never thought that Yi Xian's battle prowess would be so terrifying. After all, Yi Xian was only at the void-piercing realm. Killing intent surged in Dugu Lai's eyes when he thought of this. He couldn't be allowed to live. Such a person was too monstrous. If he continued to grow, then the Dugu family would definitely face a huge calamity in the future. The Supreme Realm expert from the Gu family narrowed his eyes. His gaze was calm, but he was constantly staring at Yi Xian as if he wanted to see through Yi Xian. The Supreme Realm expert from the Yan family had a smile on his face, an indescribable smile. Especially when he glanced at Dugu Lai and Dugu Lai, his smile grew wider. Meanwhile, Dugu Lai suddenly took a step forward. As soon as he did, the space around Yi Xian split apart. But in the next moment, the space around Yi Xian instantly returned to normal. Dugu Lai stared fixedly at Yi Xian, how exactly did you do that? With your current ability, it's impossible. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of De Gulai. In the next moment, he held a seal and smashed it down towards De Gulai's head. The Earth God's seal. When Yi Xian smashed the Earth God's seal towards De Gulai, Jian Zizai's voice suddenly resounded, "That's not how you use the seal." Chapter 402. Bang! As soon as Yi Xian's seal smashed down, it blasted De Gulai back explosively. He was pushed back over 30 meters. Everyone present was petrified when they saw this scene. He was pushed back. On the other hand, the three supreme stage experts looked at the seal in Yi Xian's hand. Obviously, they discovered the source of the problem. On the other hand, De Gulai stared fixedly at the seal in Yi Xian's hand before Yi Xian. "What is that seal of yours?" Yi Xian didn't answer De Gulai. Instead, he hurriedly asked in his heart, "Miss Jian, how do I use this seal?" Jian Zizai said, "In order to activate it, you must first refine it. You haven't refined it, so you can't activate it." Yi Xian's face darkened. "So you're saying that it's a piece of scrap metal now?" Jian Zizai said, "You can continue smashing it." Yi Xian was speechless. In the distance, De Gulai suddenly said, "Yi Xian, what is that thing in your hand?" Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked at De Gulai. "Call me Dad." "Dad?" De Gulai frowned slightly. "Dad?" Yi Xian grinned. "What a good son." Pfft. By Yi Xian's side, De Xian couldn't help but laugh. On the other hand, the expressions of some people in the surroundings were slightly strange. In the distance, De Gulai recovered from his shock. He just stared at Yi Xian with a calm expression. "Didn't you want to fight one-on-one? Come, let the old man see how capable a vile spawn like you is." As soon as he finished speaking, he pressed his hands together before him and pulled lightly. Hiss! The space before him was directly torn apart. Subsequently, a black stream of air suddenly flashed out from within, and the black stream of air instantly condensed into a black fist. De Gulai took a step forward and smashed out with his fist. Bang! The black fist was like a bolt of lightning as it smashed towards Yi Xian. Dark energy. In the distance, Yi Xian didn't dare to be careless. He dashed forward with his right hand holding the hilt of the sword at his waist. He suddenly drew the sword and slashed. Chi! A ray of sword light flashed through the battlefield. Boom! The black fist was forced to stop on the spot by Yi Xian's sword. At this moment, Yi Xian's right hand pushed forward forcefully. Break! Boom! The black fist shattered with a loud bang. However, at this moment, a black shadow suddenly flashed in front of Yi Xian. Boom! Yi Xian was instantly sent flying. This time, he was sent flying for a distance of 1,000 feet. Yi Xian held the sword with both hands and thrust it forward. Only then did he stop. As for De Gulai, he was standing where he was previously standing. De Gulai coldly stared at Yi Xian. He opened his palm and a powerful force condensed in it. Origin power. As more and more origin power gathered, the space around De Gulai began to tremble. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was solemn. He knew that De Gulai had yet to use his true strength. At the start, he was using the power of the void-piercing realm. Now, he was using the power of the origin realm. Not daring to be careless, Yi Xian's right hand tightly gripped the hilt of the sword at his waist. At the same time, two sword intents surged into his sword like a tide. Seeing these two sword intents, the two Supreme Realm experts' eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. Opposite Yi Xian, De Gulai stared at Yi Xian. In the next moment, he suddenly disappeared. Following which, a powerful force of origin immediately after, a powerful origin power swept towards Yi Xian. The power swept towards Yi Xian. Wherever this power passed, the space immediately trembled. It was incomparably shocking. In the distance, Yi Xian stomped his right foot. Bang! The ground beneath his feet directly cracked. At the same time, he charged forward and slashed down with his sword. Sword draw to decide life and death. The space in front of Yi Xian was directly shattered by this slash, and the origin power that Dugu Lai had released was directly shattered. However, Yi Xian was pushed back a few dozen meters. Yi Xian stopped, and a trace of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Dugu Lai glanced at Yi Xian. You do have some ability. Yi Xian grinned. Come on, let's continue. Dugu Lai gazed at Yi Xian for a long time. In the end, he glanced at the surroundings and said, Everyone, this is my Dugu family's matter. My Dugu family wishes to deal with it ourselves. As he spoke, he looked at the two old men from the Gu family and Yan family, brother Gu Tong, brother Yan Jia. My Dugu family can deal with him ourselves. We don't need your help. The old man called Gu Tong smiled. Brother Dugu's words are incorrect. My Gu family and the Dugu family have been on good terms for generations. Now that the Dugu family is in trouble, how can my Gu family sit back and do nothing? The old man called Yan Jia also smiled. Brother Gu is right. Moreover, this person has trespassed into the endless purgatory, which is trespassing on my Yan family's territory. If Brother Lai cannot capture him, my Yan family will also take action. Hearing the two old men's words, Dugu Lai's expression instantly became somewhat gloomy. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly smiled. You want to send them away and take the treasure on me for yourself? That's not a bad idea, but it's a pity that they won't fall for it. Huh. Dugu Lai looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, that thing on you belongs to my Dugu family. Yi Xian smiled and said, From the Dugu family? Just because you say it belongs to the Dugu family, it belongs to the Dugu family? Dugu Lai looked at Yi Xian, and after a moment, he slightly nodded. Didn't you want to fight one-on-one? Come, let's continue. As he spoke, he was about to make his move, but at this moment, Dugu Xian, who was not far away, suddenly blocked in front of Yi Xian. Dugu Xian glanced at Dugu Lai, then turned to look at Yi Xian, and sent a voice transmission with profound energy. The Dugu family has at least 2 Supreme Realm experts hidden in the dark. I will stop them later, and you will find a chance to leave. Understand? Yi Xian said softly, Can you beat them? Dugu Xian smiled, I can. After you leave, I will come and find you. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, After I leave, you will die. Dugu Xian looked at Yi Xian, and as she looked, she suddenly extended her hand and gently stroked Yi Xian's cheek. As long as you and Ling, are alive, even if I die, it's nothing. Moreover, being able to see you again, Mother is already very satisfied. As she spoke, she turned to look at Dugu Lai, who was not far away. Third uncle, let me replace my son to fight with you, is that okay? Dugu Lai sneered, If you were at your peak, your third uncle might be a little afraid of you. As for now, your primordial spirit is injured, and your strength is not even 30% of your peak. How will you fight with me? Dugu Xian smiled, Won't we know after fighting? As she spoke, her right hand rotated slightly, and she was about to make her move, but at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly pulled her hand. Dugu Xian turned to look at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian smiled, Let me do it. Dugu Xian looked at Yi Xian, while Yi Xian walked towards Dugu Lai, who was not far away. Looking at Yi Xian's back, Dugu Xian was a little lost. The youth in front of her had grown up. He was no longer the little guy who followed behind her every day with Yi Ling. Thinking of this, she suddenly felt a little heartache. All these years, what had happened between her and Yi Ling? This chapter is not over, please continue. What had he gone through? What had caused his personality to grow to such a state? In the distance, Yi Xian walked towards Dugu Lai. As he walked, a powerful sword aura suddenly exploded from him. The sword aura of a great sword immortal. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped 10 meters away from Dugu Lai. At this moment, the aura he had gathered had reached a peak. Dugu Lai looked at Yi Xian, I have to say that you really are a monster. Under the ultimate realm, there are very few people who can compare to you. It's a pity that your cultivation is too low. If you were at the origin realm, you might be able to fight the old man. Yi Xian smiled, and he stomped his right foot. Boom! A golden energy suddenly swept out from his body. In that instant, a powerful aura suddenly shook the surroundings, and everyone in the surroundings was forced back by this powerful aura. Invincible golden body. Yi Xian knew very well that if he wanted to kill Du Gulai, then he had to reveal his trump card. Otherwise, with his current cultivation, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Du Gulai even if he had the celestial spirit sword. As soon as the invincible golden body appeared, Du Gulai's expression instantly changed. Your aura. How is this possible? At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly leaped up and arrived above Du Gulai's head, and in the next moment, he suddenly smashed his fist down. Du Gulai waved his right hand, and a powerful force surged out. Boom! As Yi Xian's fist smashed down, Du Gulai's entire body directly retreated nearly 300 meters. Yan Jia and Gu Tong's expressions instantly changed when they witnessed this scene, and they were extremely shocked in their hearts. What secret technique was that? After all, Du Gulai was 2 realms higher than Yi Xian. After sending Du Gulai flying, Yi Xian didn't stop. His figure shook, and he turned into a ray of light that shot towards Du Gulai. Fast. Extremely, extremely fast. When he arrived before Du Gulai, Yi Xian drew his sword and slashed. Draw the sword to decide life and death. After he used the invincible golden body, the might of this attack had increased by at least a few times. Du Gulai's pupils constricted slightly when he saw this attack, and there was a trace of disbelief in his eyes. Yi Xian had truly shocked him too much. Just like this attack. It had completely exceeded the void-piercing realm. No, it had completely exceeded the origin realm. It could be said to have reached the supreme realm. The person who had used this attack was Yi Xian, a void-piercing realm expert. Du Gulai didn't dare to be careless when facing this attack. He took a small step back, and then his right palm faced downwards. In the next moment, he suddenly raised his palm upwards. It was like space had turned upside down, and a spatial vortex instantly engulfed Yi Xian's attack. A moment of silence ensued. Boom! An earth-shaking explosion suddenly resounded, and then countless rays of light shot out in all directions. At the same time, a figure shot backwards. It wasn't Yi Xian, but Du Gulai. The expressions of the others in the distance instantly changed when they saw this scene. After Du Gulai stopped, Yi Xian, who was in the distance, was about to attack again. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly came from the side. Brother, it was Yi Ling's voice. Yi Xian's body trembled slightly, and he turned around to look. A middle-aged man walked over with a chain in his hand, and within the chain was Yi Ling, who was wrapped in chains. Yi Xian's mind instantly went blank when he saw this. End of this chapter. Chapter 403. Pain. At this moment, Yi Xian felt as if his heart was being pierced by needles. His life's goal was to protect his sister, to let her live a good life, to let her live a carefree life. However, his sister had suffered all sorts of hardships time and time again. Hate. At this moment, he hated the Dugu family, and hated himself for being useless. Kill. At this moment, he wanted to kill. He wanted to kill everyone around him, and everyone in the Dugu family. However, his expression was extremely calm, without the slightest fluctuation. Because he knew that the more he cared about Ling, the more danger she would be in. Next to Yi Xian, Dugu Xian was also slightly taken aback when she saw Lil Ling, In the next moment, her expression turned cold, and the murderous intent in her eyes seemed to materialize. The middle-aged man beside Yi Xian was the Dugu family's patriarch, Dugu Lian. Dugu Lian glanced at Yi Xian and smiled. According to seniority, you should call me uncle. Yi Xian said softly, I've heard of the Dugu family when I was in the northern region. The Dugu family is one of the 3 great families in the heaven region. Don't you think it's beneath you to use a little girl as a hostage? Hearing Yi Xian's words, Dugu Lian chuckled. Threaten? Little nephew, I have to admit that you're quite talented. As expected of the Dugu family's bloodline. However, you think too highly of yourself. We don't want to use such methods against you. He looked at Dugu Xian. My good sister, things didn't have to turn out like this. Unfortunately, you were stubborn back then. Do you regret it now? Dugu Xian looked straight at Dugu Lian. Never. Dugu Lian, this is a matter between the Dugu family and the Gu family. Let them go. Dugu Lian shook his head. They can't live. As he spoke, he looked at Yan Jia and Gu Tong, who were not too far away. The two of you, this is a matter of my Dugu family. Please don't get involved in this, okay? Gu Tong shook his head. This isn't just the Dugu family's matter, it's the Gu family's matter too. What do you think, Lord Dugu? Dugu Lian pondered for a moment, then nodded. That's fine. With you here, we can show the Gu family the attitude of my Dugu family towards them. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian, who was not far away. My good nephew, I won't waste any more time with you. Let's make a deal. Return the Dugu family's treasure to me and I'll let your sister go. How about it? Yi Xian chuckled. Do you think I'm stupid? If I gave it to you, you'd kill me right away, wouldn't you? Dugu Lian looked straight at Yi Xian. If you don't give it to us, can't we take it? Yi Xian smiled and said, do you think I will bring that thing with me when I come here? You're too naive. Dugu Lian stared at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian continued, if I die, someone will immediately bring that treasure to the Weiyang Palace. At that time, I want to know if the Dugu family will have the guts to go to the Weiyang Palace to ask for it. Dugu Lian smiled and said, are you threatening me? Yi Xian shook his head. Let's make a deal. Let the two of them go and I'll stay here. As long as the two of them leave safely, I'll give you that treasure with both hands. Dugu Lian smiled. Do you think I'll believe you? As he spoke, he glanced at Yi Ling, who was in the iron cage, and smiled. Don't you care about your sister? I want to see if you really care about her. As his voice fell, his right hand grabbed at Yi Ling. In an instant, an electric current appeared in the iron cage. Chi 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 chi. Yi Ling's body suddenly trembled. Dugu Lian. In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly dashed forward and a powerful sword light slashed towards Dugu Lian. Dugu Lian sneered and waved his right hand lightly. Boom! The sword light was directly crushed. At the same time, Yi Xian was shaken to the point that he was forced to retreat repeatedly. This time, he retreated for more than 300 meters. When Yi Xian was pushed back, Dugu Xian suddenly disappeared. In the next instant, countless white lights engulfed Dugu Lian like a storm. Dugu Lian smiled coldly and pointed his finger forward. Wherever his finger landed, the space trembled like ripples on water. In an instant, the white light disappeared without a trace. At this time, Dugu Xian appeared in front of Dugu Lian. She was about to make a move when Dugu Lian lightly stomped his right foot. Pang! The surrounding space trembled violently. In an instant, Dugu Xian was pushed back hundreds of meters. Dugu Lian looked at Dugu Xian. My good sister, if you were at your peak, I might be a little afraid of you. But now, you're too weak. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian not far away. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian's expression suddenly turned savage. Dugu clan. I will slaughter everyone in the Dugu clan. Everyone. As his voice landed, a golden armor appeared on his body. With the appearance of this armor, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the surroundings. And this was only the first piece. Soon, the entire god set appeared on Yi Xian's body. As soon as he put on the god set, Yi Xian's aura instantly changed dramatically. Everyone present was shocked. Even Dugu Lai and the other supreme experts were shocked. This was because the aura emitted from Yi Xian made their hearts palpitate. This aura had exceeded the supreme realm. Even Dugu Lian's expression turned solemn. At this moment, Yi Xian gave him a dangerous feeling. Extremely dangerous. In the distance, Yi Xian laughed savagely, "Die for this, daddy." As soon as he spoke, he lightly stomped his foot. Hiss. A ray of golden light flashed through the battlefield. Fast. So fast that no one could see it clearly. Zhuge Lian's expression changed drastically because he couldn't see it clearly either. By the time he reacted, a powerful aura had enveloped him. Boom! An explosion resounded, and then a figure was blasted flying. This figure was Zhuge Lian. As he retreated, Zhuge Lian's body started to crack inch by inch. When he stopped, only his soul remained. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned by this scene. The head of the Zhuge clan, Zhuge Lian, was defeated just like that? The mind of Zhuge Lian, who had already turned into a soul, also went blank. He looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. What equipment is that?" At this moment, Yi Xian had already arrived in front of Yi Ling's iron cage. Looking at Yi Ling, who had already fainted in the iron cage, a powerful killing intent surged out of Yi Xian's body like tidal waves. Kill. Yi Xian took a deep breath. Take care of her. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and charged towards Zhuge Lian. The expression of Zhuge Lian, who was in soul form, turned grim when he witnessed this scene, and he retreated explosively. Meanwhile, Zhuge Li and 3 other experts of the Zhuge clan obstructed Yi Xian's path. All of them were at the supreme realm. Yi Xian didn't waste his breath and just slashed down. At this moment, a mysterious power was gathering all over his body. When this sword slashed down, it was as if it was going to split the world in two. It was incomparably terrifying. The expressions of Zhuge Li and the others changed drastically. They didn't dare act carelessly, and they attacked in unison. 3 destructive forces slammed towards Yi Xian. However, as soon as Yi Xian slashed down, the 3 forces were instantly obliterated. At the same time, Zhuge Li's body was split in half, and not even his soul remained. The expressions of Gu Tong and the others changed drastically when they witnessed this scene, and they started retreating. However, Yi Xian didn't stop there, and he continued charging at the 2 supreme realm experts of the Zhuge clan. The 2 of them turned around and fled. However, Yi Xian's speed far surpassed theirs, and their heads flew into the air in an instant. Instant kill. Instant kill of a supreme realm expert. Everyone in the surroundings was horrified when they witnessed this scene, and they retreated explosively. As for Zhuge Lian, he'd fled a long time ago. Yi Xian turned around to look at Gu Tong and the others. The latter was about to speak when Yi Xian leaped up and slashed down. A golden ray of light descended from the sky. Unstoppable. That was the last thought in Gu Tong's mind. Hiss. Before anyone could react, Gu Tong's body was split in half, and his soul was obliterated. After he killed Gu Tong with a single strike of his sword, Yi Xian turned around and swung his sword, and a ray of light flashed through the surroundings. Hiss. 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 Over 20 Origin Realm experts in the surroundings were instantly killed by that attack. Not a single one of them had survived. There was only one person left, and it was Yan Jia from the Yan clan. Yi Xian looked at Yan Jia and was about to act. Yan Jia's face changed when he saw this, and he hurriedly said, "My friend, my Yan clan has no ill intentions towards you." Yi Xian held the hilt of his sword with his right hand, and he seemed to be hesitating. Yan Jia hurriedly said, "My friend, my Yan clan has no ill intentions towards you." Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, "I have no ill intentions towards the Yan clan either. You can leave." Yan Jia immediately let out a sigh of relief when he heard that, and then he seemed to think of something and hurriedly said, "My friend, the Gu and Zhuge clans won't let the matter rest this time. Be careful." He turned around and left as soon as he finished speaking. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment after Yan Jia left, and then he walked over to Yi Ling and Zhuge Xian. "Let's go." Meanwhile, Zhuge Xian said, "Let's return to the infernal purgatory." Yi Xian gazed at Duge Xian. Why? Duge Xian replied, we won't be able to go far. The Duge clan and Gu clan won't let the matter rest. Moreover, you need to recuperate, right? Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he nodded. Then let's return to the infernal purgatory. As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Ling and asked, how is she? Duge Xian stroked Yi Ling's face lightly. She's fine. Her soul was just slightly damaged. Yi Xian clenched his fists slowly. I won't let the Duge clan off. As soon as he finished speaking, he carried Yi Ling in his arms and walked towards the infernal purgatory. Duge Xian hurriedly followed him. It didn't take long for them to arrive at the 8th level of the infernal purgatory. As soon as they arrived at the 8th level, the god set on Yi Xian's body vanished, and then Yi Xian fell backwards. At the same time, Yi Xian's body started to tremble violently, and cracking sounds resounded incessantly from his body as if it was about to collapse. Chapter 404. Backlash. Furthermore, it wasn't just one type of backlash. After all, using the invincible golden body would result in a backlash to begin with. Add that to the fact that he was wearing the god's dusk set, and those two types of backlash were extremely terrifying. Unbearable pain. This time, he was truly in unbearable pain. Not only was there a backlash on his body, but his mental power and soul were also suffering. That kind of feeling was truly enough to make him want to die. Beside Yi Xian, Duge Xian's expression greatly changed. She promptly hugged Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian's pained expression, tears once again flowed out of her eyes. She owed him. She naturally owed Yi Xian and Yi Ling. After all, she hadn't fulfilled her responsibility as a mother in the past few years. Especially now, because of her, the two of them had suffered an undeserved calamity. Looking at the two of them lying on the ground, Duge Xian choked with sobs. Just like that, the two of them quietly lay in Duge Xian's embrace. In a boundless starry sky, a woman in a simple dress was calmly walking. As she walked, she entered a pitch-black area. Within the pitch-black darkness, the woman in the simple dress was expressionlessly walking. After an unknown amount of time, the woman in the simple dress suddenly stopped. In front of her, there was a door. The door of kindness was calmly floating there. Above the door, there was a word, Dao. When the woman reached the door, a voice came from inside. Stop. The woman in the simple dress raised her head and looked at the door. A voice came from inside. You reached this place with the body of a mortal. It's truly inconceivable. The woman in the simple dress looked at the door and softly said, the boundless universe is endless. On this journey, I've seen too many strange people and things. Tell me, is there an end to the universe? The voice from inside the door said, if you want to know if there is an end, you have to go to the 5th dimension. The woman in the simple dress shook her head. I don't want to go. The voice from inside the door said, do you know that if you let go of that obsession in your heart, you will completely surpass this world and surpass the Tao? The woman faintly smiled. Tao? Longevity? As she spoke, she shook her head. Not even a strand of his hair. There was silence behind the door. The woman in the plain dress turned around and left. She seemed to have thought of something and suddenly waved her right hand. A strand of sword light directly floated above the door. The woman in the plain dress slowly walked away. At the same time, her voice slowly floated over from afar. Not long after, the woman in the plain dress walked out of the pitch-black land. She raised her head and looked at the end of the starry sky. The disappearance of the two clones must have something to do with you. Where exactly are you? I can't suppress my realm any longer. After a while, she slowly disappeared into the endless starry sky. Endless purgatory. On the 8th floor, Yi Xian felt extremely dizzy and heavy. Are you awake? At this moment, a voice rang in Yi Xian's ears. Duge Xian's voice. Yi Xian nodded and stood up. He quickly looked at Yi Ling, who was in Duge Xian's arms. Is she still not awake? Dugu Xian shook her head. No, but she's fine now. Yi Xian gently hugged Yiling and softly said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guilt. He was also filled with guilt towards Yiling. Guilt. This girl had never had a peaceful life since she was young. This was all because of his incompetence as her brother. At this moment, Dugu Xian suddenly said, Xian, have you already refined that treasure in the storage ring? Yi Xian nodded. It has already recognized me as its master. Dugu Xian glanced at Yi Xian and fell silent. What's wrong? Yi Xian asked. Dugu Xian softly said, this is not an ordinary item. Its origin is extremely mysterious. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse for you to obtain it. Yi Xian solemnly said, you also don't know the origin of this item? Dugu Xian shook her head. I obtained this item by chance. At this point, she didn't continue speaking. Seeing that she did not want to say more, Yi Xian did not continue asking about this matter. Dugu Xian continued, actually, if this item is in the hands of the Dugu family, it will not be a good thing for the Dugu family. There are too many people who covet this item. If it is in the hands of the Dugu family would have been destroyed long ago. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled bitterly. In fact, if it was not for the mysterious woman, he did not know how many times he would have died. This item was not something an ordinary person could possess. At this moment, Dugu Xian looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly looked up. In the next moment, his expression suddenly changed. The aura of an expert. Dugu Xian solemnly said, they're here. Yi Xian's face darkened. I have not recovered from my injuries yet. Saying this, he turned his head and looked down. Go to the 9th floor. No. Dugu Xian hurriedly said, you can't go to the 9th floor. Yi Xian was a little confused. Why? Dugu Xian solemnly said, the 9th floor is a forbidden area. Even the top experts of the 3 aristocratic families do not dare to casually enter. Yi Xian solemnly said, do you know what's down there? Dugu Xian glanced at Yi Xian and softly said, I don't know. However, the 9th floor has always been a forbidden area among the 3 aristocratic families. Moreover, the 3 aristocratic families have strict orders that their clansmen are not allowed to enter the 9th floor. Yi Xian bitterly smiled. My injuries have not recovered yet. If I go out, I will definitely die. If I go down, there is still a chance of survival. Dugu Xian was silent. Yi Xian softly said, let's go down. We have no other choice. Dugu Xian was silent for a moment before nodding. Just like that, the 3 of them arrived at the 9th floor. After entering the 9th floor, Yi Xian and Dugu Xian were a little surprised. This was because the 9th floor was very quiet and empty. No. Yi Xian looked up and saw a little thing lying in a distant corner. This little thing was shaped like a dog and had 2 small tails. It was sleeping soundly at the moment. At first glance, it looked very cute. However, Yi Xian and Dugu Xian were extremely vigilant. How could something that appeared on the 9th floor be simple? It's this beast. At this moment, Jian Zizai's voice suddenly sounded. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, Senior, do you know what it is? Jian Zizai calmly said, don't provoke it. Yi Xian asked, is it dangerous? Jian Zizai said, it's more dangerous than the people outside. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth twitched slightly. He hurriedly pulled Dugu Xian to the other side, away from the little demonic beast. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, then took out a pile of purple fire crystals and began to crazily devour them. Recover. What he needed to do now was to recover from his injuries as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Dugu Xian sat quietly at the side with Yiling in her arms. She just looked at Yi Xian, and from time to time, she would look at Yiling with satisfaction in her eyes. On the 8th floor. At this moment, there were already 5 Supreme Realm powerhouses gathered here. The leader was an old man in linen. The old man held a long pitch-black walking stick in his hand, and at the top of the walking stick was a black snake as thick as an arm. This person was the previous head of the Dugu family, Dugu Feng. Dugu Feng glanced at the entrance of the 9th floor and said softly, "He should have gone down." Behind Dugu Feng, an old man said in a low voice, "If he really went down, I'm afraid not even his bones would be left." Dugu Feng shook his head. "Not necessarily." As he spoke, he paused for a moment before asking again, "Is he really that monstrous?" The old man said in a low voice, "Although he used external objects, his own strength cannot be underestimated. Moreover, his talent in the sword Dao is extremely high." When he spoke up to this point, he paused for a moment before he continued, "If I'm not wrong, he should have obtained the help of that precious treasure, which is why he has such accomplishments." Dugu Feng nodded slightly. Without the help of that treasure, it would be impossible for him to have such accomplishments. That treasure. My Dugu family must obtain it. The old man said in a low voice, "The Gu family and a few other powers should already know that Yi Xian possesses a precious treasure. Even though they haven't done anything yet, they definitely won't give up." At this moment, my Dugu family has probably already fallen into a vortex. Dugu Feng glanced at the old man. "Dugu Ming, what are you trying to say?" The old man called Dugu Ming fell silent for a moment before he said, "I think that my Dugu family should withdraw from this matter now." Dugu Feng frowned slightly. "Withdraw from this matter?" Dugu Ming nodded. "If we give up on Yi Xian and stop for now, then those people in the dark will definitely be unable to sit still. They'll definitely act, and at that time, we'll be able to reap the benefits from the shadows. If we make a move now, then the ones to reap the benefits will be the others. Moreover, Yi Xian isn't a simple person. If we want to deal with him, we'll probably have to pay a price." Dugu Feng shook his head. "We can't. If we stop and someone else makes a move, and that treasure falls into their hands, would we be able to take it back? It's currently in Yi Xian's hands, and Yi Xian has the blood of my Dugu family flowing in his body. If we make a move, it'll be perfectly justifiable." Dugu Ming still wanted to say something, but Dugu Feng shook his head. "My Dugu family cannot give up this treasure, even if we have to pay a price." Dugu Ming sighed in a low voice. "Brother Feng, actually, there's no need for things to go to this extent. No matter what, Yi Xian is half a member of my Dugu family. With such great talent, entering my Dugu family is a good thing, isn't it?" Dugu Feng laughed coldly. "A good thing? Can you guarantee that he won't destroy my Dugu family after he matures? This kind of monster, if he's given 10 or 20 years, at that time, who in my Dugu family can stop him?" As he said this, he shook his head. "What you're thinking, I've thought of it. However, I don't dare to gamble. Moreover, if we let the siblings and Xian heir return to the Dugu family, what would the Gu family think? At that time, we'll be in even more trouble." Dugu Ming was silent for a while. Then, he said, "If that's the case, then he must die." Dugu Feng said softly, "All must die." As he said this, he looked down. "You guys wait here, I'll personally make a trip down." Dugu Ming's face changed. Just as he was about to speak, Dugu Feng shook his head. "Don't worry, if I want to leave, there aren't many in this world that can stop me." As he said this, he walked down the 9th floor. P.S. Be a quiet, handsome man. Chapter 405. The 9th floor. As soon as Dugu Feng walked down, he saw Yi Xian and his 2 sons. His gaze lingered on Dugu Xian for a moment, but it quickly shifted to Yi Xian. Looking at Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, his expression was rather complicated. Because the person before him was his grandson. Beside Yi Xian, Dugu Xian stood up. She looked coldly at Dugu Feng, her eyes devoid of any emotion. Dugu Feng looked at Dugu Xian and sighed slightly. "Girl, if you hadn't stubbornly insisted on doing things your own way back then, would things have reached this stage?" Dugu Xian chuckled. "Stubbornly insisted on doing things my own way? You knew that I already had someone I liked, yet you still wanted to betroth me to the Gu family. Did you ever care about my feelings? Dugu Feng said in a low voice, as the eldest daughter of the clan leader, you are indebted to the clan. You should work hard for the clan. Dugu Xian shook her head slightly. I, Dugu Xian, have my own life to decide. Dugu Feng stared at Dugu Xian. You decide for yourself. Do you know that your decision back then nearly caused the entire clan to be consigned to eternal damnation? Dugu Xian chuckled. The clan is weak, the Gu family can bully them however they want. Even if I were to marry over, it wouldn't change anything. The Gu family's ambition is great, so great that they won't give up just for a woman. Can't you see this? No, you should be able to see it clearly. You want to use me and delay as long as you can, right? Dugu Feng's expression was cold. You don't want to marry into the Dugu family, but what did that man give you? You've been imprisoned until now. Where is that man? Dugu Xian said softly, he has never let me down. Dugu Feng said coldly, stubborn. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged not far away. Have him hand over that treasure, and I can spare the three of you from death. Dugu Xian chuckled. Father, do you think I don't know your character? Whether Xian hands it over or not, you and the Dugu family won't let him go, right? Dugu Feng said coldly, he destroyed your brother's body. He even threatened to destroy my Dugu family. This is your good son? Dugu Xian shook her head slightly. Don't you know how the Dugu family has treated them and me? Dugu Feng said indifferently, so you're saying that we can't come to an agreement? Dugu Xian was about to speak when Yi Xian stood up. What do you want to talk about? What is there to talk about? Dugu Feng looked at Yi Xian. You want to destroy my Dugu family? Yi Xian nodded. As long as I don't die, the Dugu family will definitely perish. Huh, Dugu Feng suddenly laughed. After laughing for a moment, he looked at Yi Xian and said, destroy my Dugu family? You? As soon as he finished speaking, he flipped his right hand, and a powerful aura suddenly appeared here. Dugu Feng didn't see where Yi Xian was standing. He was standing in the direction of the little demonic beast. When that aura appeared, Yi Xian didn't even try to block it and directly let it blast into his body. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted flying. However, the remaining aura blasted into the little demonic beast. However, the little demonic beast wasn't affected at all. Conversely, Dugu Feng's aura vanished. Dugu Feng was stunned. On the other hand, Yi Xian led Dugu Xian and Yiling to the side cautiously. Meanwhile, the little demonic beast suddenly opened its eyes. Its pupils were pitch black. The little demonic beast looked at Dugu Feng. Dugu Feng's expression instantly changed. His intuition told him that the demonic beast before him was extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Dugu Feng stared fixedly at the demonic beast, and the demonic beast stared back at him. But it didn't take long for the demonic beast to close its eyes slowly. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw this. Why isn't the demonic beast attacking? On the other hand, Dugu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. He was extremely fearful of this demonic beast of unknown origins. Because he'd never been to the 9th level. Dugu Feng turned around to gaze at Yi Xian. You're quite thoughtful. Unfortunately, it's useless. As he spoke, he clawed at Yi Xian from afar, and a strand of mysterious energy enveloped Yi Xian. He's strong. Yi Xian held tightly onto the hilt of the sword on his waist. Dugu Feng's strength was countless times stronger than Dugu Lian's. Perhaps he would be able to resist Dugu Feng's attack if he utilized the invincible golden body or the god set. But in his current state, he was utterly incapable of resisting Dugu Feng's attack. However, at this moment, he had no choice but to resist it even if he couldn't. Yi Xian took a step forward, and then he drew his sword and slashed down. Something instantly seemed as if it was being torn apart, and it was an ear-piercing sound. However, Yi Xian's sword wasn't able to reach its end before his figure was blasted flying and smashed against the wall. Dugu Feng glanced at Yi Xian while killing intent surged explosively within his eyes. Monster! Even though he'd only exchanged a single blow with Yi Xian, he'd realized that it was just as Duge Ming had said. Yi Xian was truly too monstrous. Extremely monstrous. One had to know that under normal circumstances, a void-piercing realm powerhouse could be said to be like an ant in front of him. However, Yi Xian forcefully blocked his attack. He must die. If such a monstrous genius wasn't exterminated, he would definitely bring about endless disasters in the future. Even if the person before him was his own grandson. Duge Feng slowly clenched his right fist, and a powerful force instantly converged on it. Yi Xian was about to attack when Duge Xian blocked his path. Her delicate hands formed a strange seal, and in the next moment, a thin barrier appeared in front of him. At the same time, countless rays of white light suddenly converged within the barrier, and then they formed a tiny white vortex. The space in the surroundings started to tremble. Seeing this, Duge Feng furrowed his brows. Mysterious forbidden technique. Duge Xian ignored Duge Feng and turned to look at Yi Xian. Take your sister and leave. Leave the heaven realm, leave this vortex of trouble. As soon as she finished speaking, her delicate hand lightly pointed at Yi Xian. In an instant, a light formation appeared beneath Yi Xian and his sister Yi Ling's feet. In the blink of an eye, the two siblings had already appeared outside the infernal hell. Outside, Yi Xian was stunned. In the next moment, he directly carried his sister and went straight to the infernal hell. At this moment, Jian Zizai's voice rang out. Why go back and die? Take your sister and leave. Concentrate on cultivating for 10 years. When you return, the Duge family and Gu family will all be fleeting clouds to you. Yi Xian said, they're already dead. What's the point of coming back and killing all these people? Jian Zizai said, what's the point of going back and dying now? Yi Xian said, at least I have a clear conscience. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already appeared on the 9th floor with his sister in his arms. At this moment, Duge Feng and Duge Xian, who were about to fight, were both stunned. Back again? Duge Xian looked at Yi Xian. Why did you come back? Yi Xian walked in front of Duge Xian and placed his sister in her arms. If you can live, then live. If you can't, it's fine. The three of us will die together. Duge Xian looked at Yi Xian for a long time. Finally, she smiled slightly. All right. If you can live, then live together. If you can't, the three of us will die together. Yi Xian turned to look at Duge Feng, who was not far away. The latter was staring at him. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at the little monster not far away. At this moment, the little monster had already opened its eyes. And it was quietly watching them. Yi Xian smiled slightly and then formed a hand seal with both hands. Then, he began to chant, the world is my eyes. With one eye, I can see the heavens. Inside the tower, Jian Zizai was speechless. As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, there was actually no movement. Duge Feng looked at Yi Xian. No movement? You. As he said this, he suddenly turned his head to look at the little monster not far away. This was because the little monster had already stood up and was currently staring at Yi Xian. What was going on? Duge Feng frowned. At this moment, the little monster had already walked in front of Yi Xian. It just looked at Yi Xian. Who taught you? Its voice was a little sharp and hoarse, and it also had a mysterious fluctuation. Yi Xian said in a low voice, my master. Jian Zizai was speechless. Master. The little monster stared at Yi Xian. Where is she? Yi Xian said in a low voice, I've already informed her. She should be here soon. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the little monster's expression instantly changed. It suddenly roared, why did you call her over? As it said this, it took a few steps back. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I'm about to be beaten to death. Of course, I have to call someone to help. The small demonic beast suddenly turned its head to look at De Gufeng. De Gufeng's expression changed greatly. He was about to speak when the small demonic beast suddenly rushed forward. In an instant, it opened its bloody mouth and bit towards De Gufeng. De Gufeng's expression changed greatly. He never thought that the little demonic beast would suddenly attack. However, his reaction wasn't slow. The moment the little demonic beast attacked, he waved his right hand and a wave of black light shot out. However, before the black light could even get close to the bloody mouth, it vanished into thin air. De Gufeng's expression changed drastically when he witnessed this scene. He suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, causing his body to explode apart. After that, a black shadow floated out of the 9th level. He had abandoned his body to protect his soul. De Gufeng was very decisive. The corners of Yi Xian's mouth twitched slightly. This little monster's strength really is quite terrifying. The little monster stared fixedly at Yi Xian. You can tell her that she doesn't have to come. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. She might be on the verge of coming. The little monster's expression instantly became ferocious when it heard this. At the same time, a violent aura suddenly appeared here. Yi Xian hurriedly said, "She won't come here once I leave." Hearing Yi Xian's words, that ancient and ruthless aura instantly disappeared. On the other hand, Yi Xian added, "However, it's very dangerous outside." The little monster stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "They stay here while I head out." "All right." The little monster's expression was slightly ferocious. "You intend to use me to protect them?" Yi Xian said, "Yes." The little monster laughed coldly, "Lowly human. Don't even think about it." Yi Xian spoke indifferently. "My master, Jian Zizai, said that if I die, then I'll definitely make all the living beings in the endless purgatory die with me." The little monster was speechless. Chapter 406. In front of Yi Xian, the little monster stared at Yi Xian. Its eyes were filled with killing intent. Clearly, the human in front of it had angered it. But soon, the killing intent gradually disappeared. The little monster retreated to the side. "Human, tell me, why did she accept a human as a disciple?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Because I am outstanding. Very, very outstanding." Inside the prison pagoda, Jian Zizai's voice sounded, "Please have some face." Yi Xian, hearing Yi Xian's words, the little monster's eyelids twitched. She stared at Yi Xian for a long time, then retreated to a corner and did not say anything. Yi Xian relaxed. He turned to De Gufeng, "Take good care of Linger." With that, he turned to leave. De Gufeng suddenly grabbed his arm. "You want to go to the De Gu family?" Yi Xian nodded. De Gufeng said in a low voice, "Although the De Gu family's 2 family heads are seriously injured, the De Gu family's overall strength is still there." Yi Xian nodded, "I know." De Gufeng frowned, "Then why are you still going?" Yi Xian said softly, "They beat my sister." With that, he turned to leave. Watching Yi Xian leave, De Gufeng was stunned. Soon, Yi Xian quietly left the infernal purgatory. In the vast starry sky, Yi Xian glanced around. There were still some experts in the darkness. In the darkness, Yi Xian was silent for a moment. The next moment, he suddenly disappeared. About 15 minutes later, more than 10 corpses appeared. These corpses had been sucked clean. Assassination. Facing the De Gu family, he naturally would not choose to fight recklessly. Since he could not win openly, he would use the dark. Soon, Yi Xian disappeared from the field. And not long after Yi Xian disappeared, a black figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the infernal purgatory. The black shadow glanced at the infernal purgatory and said softly, "That tower has appeared, we have to inform the Holy Lord." With that, he turned around and disappeared. In the distant starry sky, there was a palace. Above the palace, there were 9 giant dragons soaring and circling. Weiyang Palace. This was the number 1 force in the never-ending star domain. the never-ending star palace. In the hall, a petite woman sat quietly. Not far from her, a black-robed man knelt. After an unknown period of time, the petite girl suddenly opened her eyes. She looked at the black-robed man in front of her with an expressionless face. "Are you sure?" The black-robed man hurriedly said. "He has already arrived at the never-ending star zone." However, at this moment, the Duga clan seems to be targeting him. Other than the Duga clan, the Gu clan, the Yen clan, the Holy Land, and the northern and southern martial sects have all made their moves. At this point, he looked at the little girl and said, "Palace Master, this subordinate suggests that we should act immediately and seize that treasure." The little girl looked at the black-robed man. "My endless palace cannot participate in this matter." The black-robed man was stunned for a moment before he quickly replied, "Yes." With that, he quietly left. After the black-robed man left, the little girl slowly closed her eyes. In her mind, there was a figure that she could not get out of her mind. The Duga clan. As one of the 3 great aristocratic families in the Heaven region, the Duga clan was naturally famous in the entire Heaven region. Therefore, Yi Xian easily found out the location of the Duga clan. Yu City. This Yu City was a subsidiary city of the Duga clan, and the Duga clan was in this Yu City. Yi Xian quietly snuck into the Yu City. On the streets, he slowly walked. Jian Zizai suddenly said, "For your sister, you are willing to do anything?" Yi Xian said, "What do you want to say?" Jian Zizai smiled and said, "Nothing. I just want to tell you that on your future path of the Great Tao, feelings will be your greatest burden and also your greatest weakness." Yi Xian stopped and said softly, "Miss Jian, forgive me for being presumptuous, but if your mother can come back to life, are you willing to exchange your life's cultivation for her?" Jian Zizai fell silent. Yi Xian continued, "I, Yi Xian, am still alive. I want to become stronger, and I also want to see the prosperity of this world. I want to have the strength to destroy the world with a single sword strike. However, I hope that my friends and family are still around. If I don't have family and friends, so what if I am at the peak of the sword way?" After saying that, he walked into the distance. Jian Zizai said again, "Longevity and the Great Tao are really not that important to you?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "They are important, but my sister is more important." As he said that, he raised his head and looked into the distance. "The Duga clan captured my sister and beat her. I will make them pay 100 times the price." Jian Zizai said softly, "Sister doting demon." Not long after, Yi Xian arrived at the Duga clan's mansion. It was very big, like a palace. Looking at the Duga clan's mansion, Yi Xian smiled slightly. In the next moment, he disappeared. 15 minutes later, a corpse suddenly appeared in front of the Duga clan's mansion. The Duga clan was shocked. Not long after, 2 more corpses appeared in front of the Duga clan's mansion. They were all people from the Duga clan. At that moment, an old man appeared at the door. The old man coldly looked around, then stopped at the door and did not leave. However, not long after, another corpse appeared in front of the Duga clan's mansion, not far from the old man. Seeing this, the old man's expression immediately changed. He was shocked. This was because he did not know how the corpse had appeared. Soon, the entire Duga clan was shaken. Not long after, many experts appeared around the Duga clan's mansion. In a large hall, Duga Lian sat quietly. At that moment, he and his father, Duga Feng, were both in soul form. The father and son were both sitting in the hall. It was not easy to form a physical body, so the 2 of them had not formed a physical body yet. Apart from the 2 of them, there were a few elders in the hall. At that moment, everyone's expressions were extremely ugly. Someone is targeting the Duga clan. At this moment, an old man suddenly said with a heavy voice, "And even now, we still don't know who it is." Duga Feng suddenly said with a heavy voice, "Our Duga clan hasn't had any opponents recently. Is it the Yi Xian?" Below, the old man shook his head, "That's not very likely." His strength is not bad, but he's not that powerful. Dugu Feng said softly, if it's not him, then who is it? The old man said with a heavy voice, no matter who it is, he's currently targeting our Dugu clan. We need to find him. Just when Dugu Feng was about to say something, a guard suddenly ran in. Everyone looked at the guard, who said rather frantically, Patriarch, there are over a dozen more corpses outside. Most of them are Origin Realm experts. They were all killed with a single strike. His methods were clean and efficient. It's him. At this moment, Dugu Lian suddenly said, it's him. Everyone looked at Dugu Lian, who smiled viciously. I've seen that little bastard's expression before. He's a vicious person. He said he wanted to destroy our Dugu clan. Now, he's here. Dugu Feng said with a heavy voice, it's impossible for him to have such strength. Dugu Lian smiled and said, Father, that supreme treasure is with him. With that supreme treasure, anything is possible. Dugu Feng fell silent. Below, the old man stood up. If it really is him, then there might be more than one person behind him. Now, he has come without a trace. We can't stop him at all. Dugu Lian said, bring out all the shadows. I refuse to believe that he won't give himself away at all. Very soon, all the experts of the Dugu clan moved out. The surroundings of the Dugu clan were filled with guards. Not only were there openly, but there were many hidden as well. After so many experts appeared, no more people from the Dugu clan died. Outside the Dugu clan, in a corner of a street, Yi Xian held his sword with both hands as he silently leaned against the wall. Jian Zizai suddenly asked, you're not going to do anything? Yi Xian said indifferently, there's no rush. It's only interesting to kill this person slowly. Jian Zizai said with a smile, actually, Yi Xian, there are many times when I quite admire you. I like that you always take revenge. Yi Xian said indifferently, haven't you always wanted to kill me? Jian Zizai said, can't I kill you just because I admire you? Yi Xian was speechless. Jian Zizai suddenly said, do you know what the little monster on the 9th floor is? Yi Xian shook his head, it seems to be very afraid of you. Jian Zizai said indifferently, do you know why it's so weak? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. How could it be weak? Jian Zizai said again, it's because I forcibly scattered its primordial spirit back then. Otherwise, with its strength, this infernal purgatory might not be able to trap it. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Miss Jian, did you really destroy the entire god race? Jian Zizai was silent for a moment, then said, the destruction of the god race doesn't have much to do with me. I only killed a few people from the god race. What really destroyed the god race was their arrogance, their incomparable arrogance. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said, among the races you know, which one is the strongest? Jian Zizai said, it should be the legendary ancient people. Ancient people? Yi Xian slightly frowned. Jian Zizai said, a race that once wanted to attack the 5th dimension. Unfortunately, for some reason, they suddenly disappeared without a trace. They either fought their way into the 5th dimension, or they were completely wiped out. Yi Xian said softly, can't we enter the 5th dimension? Jian Zizai said indifferently, you're lucky because you have the highest chance of entering. Of course, that's if you can survive. After saying this, she paused for a moment, then said, I've always been curious as to why this broken pagoda would appear in the 4th dimension. Yi Xian sternly said, I think it came from me. Haha, Jian Zizai suddenly laughed. After laughing for a moment, she said, Yi Xian, Yi Xian, your skin is really the thickest in the entire universe. Yi Xian was speechless. One day later, Yi Xian disappeared from a corner. When he reappeared, he was already in the Dugu family's residence. Not long after, corpses of experts appeared in the Dugu family's residence. All of these corpses had their throats slit. Dugu Feng appeared in the sky above the Dugu family's residence. He coldly looked around. Yi Xian, what kind of man are you to plot against people behind their backs? If you have the ability, then come out." There was no response. At this moment, Yi Xian had already appeared in a large hall. In front of him was Duge Lian. At this moment, Duge Lian was looking at Yi Xian in fear. A sword was pressed against Duge Lian's neck. Duge Lian forced himself to calm down. "Yi Xian, you," Yi Xian grinned. "Good uncle, nephew will send you on your way." As his voice fell, he slashed down with his sword. Chi! Duge Lian's soul directly disappeared, but Yi Xian's complexion greatly changed. Chapter 407. A man appeared behind Yi Xian. It was a soul, and it was Duge Lian. A trap. Yi Xian knew that he'd fallen into a trap. He didn't panic and turned around. At this moment, over a dozen experts appeared in the surroundings. All of them were at the Supreme Realm. Obviously, the entire Duge clan had come out. The leader was Duge Feng. Duge Feng stared coldly at Yi Xian. "I never expected it to be you." Yi Xian laughed, surprised. Duge Feng spoke coldly. "Yi Xian, I never expected you to come to my Duge clan. You've got guts." Yi Xian smiled faintly. "Are you sure I came alone?" Duge Feng's eyes narrowed. "Who else is behind you?" Yi Xian laughed. "Take a guess." Duge Feng was about to speak when Duge Lian suddenly laughed. "What's the point of wasting time with him? Kill him." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian stomped his right foot on the ground. In an instant, a powerful aura swept out from his body, causing the entire hall to collapse. Invincible golden body and god set. At this moment, he had no choice but to use his trump card against so many experts. Duge Lian's face fell when he saw Yi Xian donning the god set. "Watch out." As soon as he finished speaking, a golden beam of light pierced through the head of one of the experts from the Duge clan. Instant kill. It was an instant kill. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. Because it was too exaggerated. Killing a Supreme Realm expert in an instant? At this moment, Yi Xian looked at Duge Feng. The latter's face fell, and he was about to retreat when Yi Xian suddenly vanished. In the next moment, a beam of light appeared in front of him. Soul-setting sword. This sword was targeted at souls. Duge Feng's heart trembled when he saw Yi Xian's sword, because he could feel how terrifying it was. If he still had his fleshly body, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of this sword. However, he was now in soul form, and his strength wasn't just a little bit weaker than before. Especially since this sword was specifically targeted at souls. Duge Feng didn't hesitate and turned to flee. However, Yi Xian's sword was even faster. Chi! Before everyone's eyes, Yi Xian's sword pierced through Duge Feng's forehead. Duge Feng's soul instantly started to turn illusory after being pierced by the sword. At this moment, Duge Feng's face was ashen. He knew that he was finished. On the other side, Duge Lian, who was also a soul body, retreated rapidly and retreated behind a group of experts. This was because he could sense. After killing Duge Feng with a single strike, Yi Xian grinned. This grin was somewhat ferocious, and it made one shudder. Opposite Yi Xian, Duge Lian hurriedly said, "Please welcome the forefather. Quickly invite the ancestor here." Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly vanished, and then a ray of golden light flashed. Hiss! The head of another expert from the Duge clan flew into the air. It was a slaughter. Yi Xian hurriedly took out the purple fire crystal and began to devour it. At this moment, Jian Zizai suddenly said, "If you didn't escape just now, you would have died without a doubt." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Even with the god set, I still can't beat that person." Jian Zizai sneered. "Right now, if we were to talk about your normal strength, you wouldn't even be able to beat a Supreme Realm expert. If it weren't for the invincible golden body and the god set, you would have died a long time ago. However, the martial emperor golden body and the god set aren't invincible. Moreover, you can't unleash the true power of the God set. To put it simply, that person can't destroy the God set, but he can destroy you. Do you understand? Yi Xian nodded slightly. Understood. 2 hours later, Yi Xian left the cave and went straight to the Dugu family. Not long after, Yi Xian arrived before the Dugu family's mansion again. This time, he still concealed his aura. It wasn't over yet. Very soon, Yi Xian snuck into the stock market silently again. Half a quarter of an hour later, corpses appeared in the Dugu family. These corpses had appeared without a sound. In a large hall, Dugu Lian, who sat at the head of the table, stared ahead. At this moment, basically all the experts of the Dugu family were in this hall. In the hall, an expert of the Dugu family said in a low voice, he's here again. Dugu Lian looked at Dugu Ming, who was beside him. Uncle Ming, you've always been resourceful. What do you think? Dugu Ming was silent for a moment, and then he said, this person definitely won't let this matter go. If he doesn't come out, the Dugu family can't do anything to him. Unless... Dugu Lian hurriedly asked. Unless what? Dugu Ming said in a low voice, unless we find help. Dugu Lian frowned slightly. Find the Gu family or the Yen family? Dugu Ming said softly, the Yen family will definitely not help us because the Dugu family has always been close to the Gu family. They can't wait for us to be destroyed. Thus, we can only find the Gu family. If we do that, we must sacrifice something. Everyone instantly fell silent when they heard this. Sacrifice something. Dugu Ming laughed bitterly. The Yen family doesn't have good intentions, and the Gu family isn't kind either. If the Dugu family asks for help from them, they'll definitely suck our blood. Moreover, the Dugu family won't dare to have any designs on that treasure in the future. When he spoke up to this point, he shook his head slightly. Actually, the Dugu family doesn't have the ability to think about that treasure anymore. Now, there are only two paths before us. Either we make peace with Yi Xian, or we find a way to annihilate him. Make peace? Dugu Lian laughed coldly. Uncle Ming, do you think we can still make peace with him? He killed my father and so many people from the Dugu family. How can we make peace with him? Dugu Ming said solemnly, then there's only one path left. Dugu Lian said fiercely, if this person doesn't die, the Dugu family will definitely be destroyed in the future. No, the Dugu family is already in no peace. Let's find the Gu family. Dugu Ming looked at Dugu Lian and said solemnly, we'll have to pay a huge price. Dugu Lian looked at Dugu Ming coldly. Our family is about to be annihilated. Dugu Ming sighed softly. Then let me go to the Gu family. Dugu Lian nodded. That would be for the best. Dugu Ming turned and left. In the hall, Dugu Lian's eyes were closed. No one knew what he was thinking. In the entire Dugu family mansion, people were dying at every moment. It could be said that the Dugu family was in a state of panic. Many people had already started to escape, especially the servants of the Dugu family. Most of them had already escaped. Facing this person in the dark, the Dugu family was helpless. In the room, Dugu Lian, who was already a soul, was also panicking. Originally, the Dugu family's Dugu Feng had the ability to keep Yi Xian in check. However, Dugu Feng insisted on going to the 9th level of Inferno Hell and was heavily injured by that mysterious demon beast. As of now, there was no one in the Dugu family who could keep Yi Xian in check. That day, the Dugu family's patriarch appeared, but Yi Xian turned around and escaped. That day, Dugu Lian almost died from anger. Wait. All Dugu Lian could do now was wait for Dugu Ming to invite the experts of the Gu family. At this moment, Dugu Ming suddenly raised his head to look outside the door. There, a bloody head flew in. Seeing this scene, Dugu Lian's eyelids twitched, and he hurriedly stood up. At this moment, another bloody head flew in. P.S. After I was discharged from Junyi with my father, we came to the county. Because of uremia and diabetes, he had to go to the hospital for dialysis 3 times a week. I thought that everything would slowly get better, but I didn't expect that yesterday, he would suddenly lose all his strength. I brought him to the hospital. At around 10:00 in the morning, he went into shock due to low blood pressure. The doctors couldn't save him and he passed away at 10 o'clock. There's only one chapter today. Tomorrow, the day after that, or even for many days, there might be fewer and fewer updates. I've been writing the book for 4 years, and there's been a lot of things happening this year. The promised updates are getting fewer and fewer. Sorry. I don't like to write chicken soup articles, but I still want to say this. Take good care of your parents, take good care of your wife and children, and also take good care of yourself. Especially your parents. Most of your friends' parents might be old, so while you still have the chance, take care of them and be filial. Chapter 408. Inside the house, the expressions of Dugu Lian and the others were extremely ugly. However, no one dared to go out. The current Yi Xian could be said to be an invincible existence after putting on that godly outfit. Even the Supreme Realm was no match for him. And in the field, no one had surpassed the Supreme Realm. Wait. The only thing they could do now was wait for the experts of the Gu family to arrive. Outside the house, in a corner, Yi Xian stood quietly. Even if someone passed by in front of him, they would not be able to discover his existence. Chaotic energy. Yi Xian discovered that if he became stronger, the chaotic energy would also become stronger. Inside the prison pagoda, Jian Zizai suddenly said, "Why don't you just go in and slaughter them all?" Yi Xian said calmly, "There are at least 6 Supreme Realm experts inside. If I go in now, they will definitely fight to the death. At that time, I will have to put on that godly outfit again and suffer the backlash." Intuition told him that his enemies would not only be the Dugu family, because there were many people who coveted his prison pagoda. And if he suffered the backlash again, he might not be as lucky as before. Jian Zizai said, "You have a lot of thoughts." At this point, she paused slightly and said, "No matter what, the Dugu family is still related to you by blood. Do you really want to be so ruthless?" Yi Xian sneered, "Miss Jian, tell me, if the 3 of us fall into their hands, what will happen to us?" Jian Zizai said softly, "We will definitely die without a complete corpse." Yi Xian said with a smile, "So, why should I show mercy? They don't treat me as family, why should I treat them as family? I'm not stupid." Jian Zizai said with a smile, "Indeed, I will treat others how they treat me." Yi Xian suddenly said with a smile, "Miss Jian, you don't seem to want me to die so much recently." Jian Zizai said, "I just haven't waited for the opportunity." Yi Xian chuckled and did not say anything else. He turned around and disappeared. Plunder. Now that Dugu Lian and the others did not dare to come out, it could be said that no one in the entire Dugu residence could stop him. Moreover, the Dugu family was a big family. So, how could they be lacking in treasures? Soon, Yi Xian began to frantically plunder the Dugu family's treasures. After a while, Yi Xian started to get excited. In the Dugu family, he had found 3 saint-level treasures, a long spear, a long rope, and a broken saber. All 3 items were saint tier. In addition to this, he had obtained over 10 million purple Genesis crystals. Including his previous gains, he now had over 15 million purple Genesis crystals. This amount of wealth could be said to be a lot. He had also obtained countless miscellaneous items. Although each item was not that precious, if all of them were gathered together, it would still be a considerable sum. He had made a killing. This time, it could be said that he had made a killing. After he finished plundering, Yi Xian was about to leave silently. But right at this moment, 3 invisible pressures suddenly appeared in the sky above the Dugu clan estate. Following the appearance of these 3 pressures, an invisible force suddenly began to frantically sweep through every corner of the Dugu clan estate. Sensing this scene, Yi Xian's expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to quietly retreat, the force suddenly swept over him. However, the force did not sense him. Seeing this, Yi Xian immediately heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, Jian Zizai suddenly said, "What are you so nervous about? This chaotic qi is a divine item after all. How can these people see through it?" Yi Xian nodded slightly. Understood. After saying this, he quietly retreated. You're not going to kill De Gulian and the others? Killing people is divided into fast and slow. I want to kill them slowly. You obviously know that you can't beat them, so you want to run. I promise you, the Duga clan will definitely perish. The door to the room suddenly opened, and a white-robed old man walked in. Seeing this white-robed old man, De Gulian, who was sitting at the head of the table, immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly got up to greet him. So it's Senior Gauze. Thank you, Senior Gauze, for coming to help. The old man called Gu Xiu glanced at the people around him and smiled. My Gu clan and the Duga clan have been good friends for generations. Now that the Duga clan is in trouble, how can my Gu clan sit back and do nothing? Now, my Gu clan and the Duga clan have sent 3 experts here. With them guarding this place, that Yi Xian will definitely not dare to appear again. De Gulian said in a deep voice, Senior Gauze, this Yi Xian is not simple. Gauze smiled slightly. I know. However, if he dares to appear, he will definitely die. De Gulian said with a smile, that's good. Gauze also smiled slightly, but his smile was a little strange. Yi Xian returned to the 9th floor of the infernal purgatory. As soon as he reached the 9th floor, a beautiful figure threw herself into his arms. Yi Ling. At this moment, Yi Ling had already woken up. Yi Ling hugged Yi Xian tightly, crying loudly. Not far away, Duga Xian stood quietly, looking at the 2 siblings. Yi Xian lightly patted Yi Ling's back and smiled. Don't cry, big brother is here. Yi Ling's head continuously rubbed against Yi Xian's chest, causing Yi Xian's face to be covered with snot. After a long time, Yi Ling's emotions gradually calmed down. At this moment, Duga Xian walked over, and Yi Ling hid behind Yi Xian, not looking at Duga Xian. Seeing this, Duga Xian smiled bitterly and retracted her hand. How is the Duga clan? Yi Xian said, almost all of them have died. Duga Xian said in a deep voice, be careful of the Gu clan. Gu clan? Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Why? Duga Xian said in a low voice, even though the Duga clan is one of the 3 great clans along with the Gu clan, the Duga clan's strength is far inferior to the Gu clan. All those years ago, the Gu clan asked me to join them because they hoped to obtain that treasure from you. Now that they know that treasure is in your possession, they will definitely not let you off. Yi Xian was slightly curious. How did you obtain this treasure all those years ago? He'd always been extremely curious about the origins of this treasure, and he knew that this treasure had always been in Duga Xian's possession. Duga Xian fell silent for a moment before she said, I'll tell you in the future, alright? Yi Xian nodded. Alright. Duga Xian walked over to Yi Xian, glanced at Yi Xian and said softly, leave the heavenly region and go far away, alright? Yi Xian shook his head. It's too late. He naturally knew that his best option now was to leave this place. Unfortunately, he knew that if he brought Yi Ling and Duga Xian out, they would definitely be beaten up. There were too many people who had designs on him now. No matter where he ran to, these forces would not let him go. Moreover, he would not leave until the Duga clan was destroyed. Duga Xian glanced at Yi Xian and his sister with a complicated expression. She felt extremely guilty. At this moment, she hoped that the treasure was not on Yi Xian. Without this treasure, perhaps Yi Xian would not be so outstanding, but he would not be in so much trouble. In fact, she had greatly underestimated the value of this treasure. At this moment, the little demonic beast not far away suddenly said, Human. Yi Xian and his mother looked at the little demonic beast. The little demonic beast stared at Yi Xian. Your master is not here yet? Yi Xian said indifferently, why? The little demonic beast stared at Yi Xian. These days, I've been thinking, why would she accept a human as a disciple? This is absolutely impossible. Moreover, she is not from the same era as you. Therefore, you can't be her disciple. As it spoke, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the surroundings. Du Guxian's face changed. She hurriedly stood in front of Yi Xian and his sister. Yi Xian pulled Du Guxian and walked in front of the little demonic beast. The little demonic beast stared coldly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Are you sure I'm not her disciple?" The little demonic beast said, "Prove it to me." As its voice fell, a powerful aura directly enveloped Yi Xian. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Miss Jian, help me." Jian Zizai did not respond. Yi Xian's face darkened. It seemed that he could only rely on himself to solve this matter. Yi Xian was about to act when Jian Zizai suddenly said, "In front of the divine gate, break the soul with one finger." Yi Xian was stunned, then looked at the little demonic beast. In front of the divine gate, break the soul with one finger. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the little demonic beast's face instantly changed. It retreated rapidly until it retreated to a corner. It stared at Yi Xian, the killing intent in its eyes was gone, only fear. Yi Xian sighed in his heart, "Miss Jian, it seems that you were not a good person in the past." Jian Zizai did not say anything. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this moment, his face suddenly changed. He looked up. There was a powerful aura. Yi Xian said in a low voice, "They're here." As Yi Xian's voice fell, a white-robed old man suddenly walked down from the 8th floor. This person was Gauze, who had gone to the Duga clan previously. Gauze's gaze immediately fell on the little demonic beast in the corner. Seeing this little demonic beast, Gauze's eyes were filled with fear. After a moment of silence, Gauze took out a fruit the size of a fist. As soon as the fruit appeared, a fragrant aroma instantly filled the air. Not far away, the little demonic beast looked at the fruit with a trace of greed in its eyes. Gauze passed the fruit to the little demonic beast and smiled, "Senior, this is a small gift from my Gu clan. I hope that you will accept it." The little demonic beast glanced at Gauze, then grabbed the fruit with its claw. Seeing this scene, a trace of a smile appeared on Gauze's face. Then, he turned to look at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, I'll give you a chance to live. I wonder if you'll take it." Yi Xian asked with a smile, "What way?" Gauze said, "Hand over that divine object, and my Gu clan will let you and your mother live." Yi Xian thought for a moment, then shook his head, "No way. Because you will definitely not give us a chance to live." Gauze's eyes narrowed, "Looks like you're going to walk the path of death." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened his right hand, and a powerful force gathered in his palm. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched, then he clasped his hands together, "My invincible master, come and save me." Hearing Yi Xian's words, the little demonic beast's expression changed drastically. In the next moment, it directly pounced towards Gauze. "P.S. If I stop updating tomorrow, please forgive me." Chapter 409. Gauze's expression changed drastically when he saw the little demonic beast make its move. He retreated rapidly, but the little demonic beast was even faster. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived in front of him. Gauze was horrified. At this crucial moment, he decisively abandoned his physical body and slapped his abdomen with his right hand. Boom! His physical body collapsed. His soul was about to escape. But at this moment, a sword ray suddenly slashed at his body. Soul-setting sword. With the previous incident with Duga Feng, Yi Xian was already prepared. Thus, when the little demonic beast made its move, he was already prepared to act. This was to prevent Gauze from abandoning his physical body and using his soul to escape. As the sword entered his soul, Gauze's eyes widened in disbelief. He did not expect the little demonic beast to make a move, nor did he understand why it would do so. Even in death, he did not understand. After Gauze's death, Yi Xian pulled out his sword and took out his netherworld ring to frantically absorb Gaza's soul. To him, this was a great tonic. Although it could not increase his strength immediately, it would be of great use in the future, especially to his soul. The little demonic beast glanced at Yi Xian and retreated to the side. It was somewhat fearful of the current Yi Xian. To be more accurate, it was fearful of that woman. Jian Zizai. That woman. It did not even want to think about her, let alone see her. Thus, when it saw Yi Xian calling for help, it decisively chose to act. Its purpose was to prevent Yi Xian from calling that woman over. And now, it hoped that Yi Xian and the rest would leave quickly. In the distance, Yi Xian used the netherworld ring to absorb Gaza's soul. It had to be said that this feeling was very refreshing. It was extremely refreshing, as if his entire soul was floating. Yi Xian kept the netherworld ring, then turned to Duge Xian and Duge Xian. You two stay here. I'll go out for a while. Yi Ling hurriedly hugged his arm. I'll go with you. Yi Xian shook his head. Be good. Stay here. Yi Ling shook his head vigorously. Yi Xian chuckled and said, when you become stronger, then we can fight side by side, okay? Yi Ling lowered his head slightly. No one knew what he was thinking. Yi Xian gently rubbed Yi Ling's little head. Wait for me here. Also, don't hate her, okay? Yi Ling suddenly looked up at Yi Xian. No. If it wasn't for her, you wouldn't have suffered so much. I won't forgive her. As she spoke, she began to cry. She would never forget the hardships her brother had suffered, and the reason why her brother had suffered so much was because that woman had left him. If that woman hadn't left, her brother wouldn't have suffered so much. She had hated that woman since she was young. She hated him for his brother. Hearing Yi Ling's words, Duge Xian, who was not far away, felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. Yi Xian gently wiped away the tears on Yi Ling's face and said with a smile, Then do you know that she left to save us? Yi Ling looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said softly, At the end of the day, she doesn't owe us anything. On the contrary, in order to protect us, she was imprisoned here for more than 10 years. We owe her. Do you understand? Hearing Yi Xian's words, Duge Xian, who was not far away, burst into tears. In the distance, Yi Xian said again, Even your brother doesn't hate her. Don't hate her, okay? Yi Ling remained silent and did not speak. Yi Xian smiled. Wait for me here. Your brother will go kill some people. After saying that, he turned and disappeared not far away. After Yi Xian left, Duge Xian walked in front of Yi Ling. Yi Ling lowered his head and did not speak. Duge Xian said softly, Mother understands that you hate Mother. Can you give Mother a chance? A chance to make up for it. Yi Ling still lowered his head and did not speak. Duge Xian gently pulled on Yi Ling's arm. Yi Ling tried to pull away, but Duge Xian held on tightly. After Yi Ling failed to pull away once, he gave up. Seeing this scene, Duge Xian's face instantly revealed a smile. Not far away, the little demonic beast's expression was somewhat ugly. This Yi Xian did not even plan to leave with these two women. He was clearly using this place as a refuge. In fact, this was Yi Xian's plan. He could attack and retreat. After leaving the infernal purgatory, Yi Xian directly went to the Duge family. He naturally would not let the Duge family off. After all, Duge Lian was not dead yet. As soon as Yi Xian left the infernal purgatory, he felt an aura locking onto him. Sensing this scene, Yi Xian's expression instantly changed. After all, he still had the chaotic energy hidden. The opponent could actually lock onto him. Yi Xian was about to turn around and return to the infernal purgatory, but at this time, a light net suddenly appeared in the sky above the infernal purgatory. Then, the space around Yi Xian trembled violently. Countless layers of light rays stacked up and sealed the space around Yi Xian. He was discovered. Yi Xian's expression darkened. He took out the immortal spirit sword. At this time, a middle-aged man appeared not far away from him. The middle-aged man was dressed in a gray robe, holding a black folding fan in his hand. He only had one eye. The middle-aged man sized up Yi Xian and said with a smile, "I guess you must be Yi Xian. Not bad, not bad. You are indeed a genius. Especially that concealment technique of yours. If not for this array, I would not have been able to discover you." Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. "From the Gu family?" The middle-aged man nodded. Yi Xian smiled. "Is the Gu family going to stand up for the Duga family?" The middle-aged man smiled and waved his folding fan. "Not at all. I came here for one thing, and that is to kill." Yi Xian asked, "Not to snatch the treasure?" The middle-aged man smiled. "Kill first, then snatch the treasure." Yi Xian smiled. The next moment, he directly took out the Space Dao Law. As the Space Dao Law appeared, his entire body instantly became illusory. The middle-aged man smiled. Trying to use space to escape. Dream on. As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand pressed down lightly. Boom! Below, at the entrance of the infernal purgatory, a figure was forced to a stop. It was Yi Xian. Yi Xian was forced to a stop on the spot by a powerful force. As soon as Yi Xian raised his head, a fist descended from the sky like a mountain. Its target was him. It was so fast that he could not dodge it at all. Yi Xian suddenly pulled out his sword and stabbed upwards. Buzz! A sword cry suddenly resounded in the sky. Then, a sword light directly slashed the fist. Boom! The entire sky shook violently. On the other hand, Yi Xian, who was on the ground, retreated rapidly. This time, he retreated more than 1,000 feet. As soon as Yi Xian stopped, the middle-aged man appeared not far away in front of him. The middle-aged man walked slowly toward Yi Xian with a smile on his face. "Not bad, not bad. You took a punch from me head-on, and you only suffered a small injury. Not bad." As he spoke, he suddenly clenched his right hand. In an instant, a powerful fist intent appeared in the surroundings, causing the entire space to tremble. Below, Yi Xian's face changed. His right hand gripped the sword hilt tightly. Two sword intents flowed into the scabbard like spring water. At the same time, a powerful aura suddenly spread out from his body. Invincible golden body. Facing the middle-aged man, he did not dare to underestimate him. He directly displayed the invincible golden body. In the sky, the middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian with a trace of surprise in his eyes. What kind of divine art is this? It's quite powerful. Yi Xian did not speak nonsense. He suddenly stomped his right foot. Boom! Yi Xian rose from the ground. In the sky, Yi Xian suddenly pulled out his sword and slashed. Buzz! A sword cry resounded in the sky. As the sword cry resounded, a sword light fiercely slashed down from the sky. As the sword fell, the space above the middle-aged man's head directly distorted. Below Yi Xian, the middle-aged man grinned. He really is a monstrous genius. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly smashed his fist upwards. Bang! The space and the surroundings trembled violently. Yi Xian's sword light was forcefully stopped by this force. At the same time, Yi Xian retreated repeatedly in midair. However, he'd only retreated a few steps before he stopped. After that, he charged forward swiftly and slashed his sword down once more. The middle-aged man raised his hand and smashed his fist forward. Everywhere his fist descended, space sunk down, and it was an extremely shocking sight. Bang! A world-shaking explosion resounded in the sky, and then the middle-aged man beneath Yi Xian retreated repeatedly by over 30 m. As soon as he stopped, the space behind him instantly collapsed. At the same time, a flying sword suddenly flew out from the space in front of him at an extremely swift speed. Void flash. The middle-aged man grinned when he saw this sword strike. Not bad. As soon as he finished speaking, he clamped his fingers together lightly. This caused the sword light before him to instantly vanish, and Yi Xian's sword was between his fingers. A wisp of a smile arose on the corners of the middle-aged man's mouth. No wonder even a Supreme Realm expert was unable to harm you. You really are extraordinary. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword between his fingers suddenly flew out and slashed directly at Yi Xian. It was swift. This sword strike was extremely swift, and it was even swifter than the attack Yi Xian had executed earlier. Yi Xian was shocked, and he didn't dare act carelessly. He stretched his right hand forward and clenched it forcefully. This clench of his felt like he'd grabbed onto the sword, but the formidable force contained within it blasted him to the point he was blasted back repeatedly, and he moved 300 m back. After Yi Xian stopped moving, he glanced at his arm. At this moment, his entire arm had cracked apart, and fresh blood was seeping out incessantly from it. Yi Xian's heart shook. This person's strength is so terrifying. The middle-aged man walked slowly towards Yi Xian. No wonder the Dugu family stopped at nothing to kill you. You really have to die. If you don't die, I won't be able to rest at ease. As soon as he finished speaking, he pressed his right hand down lightly. In an instant, a destructive force suddenly swept down from the sky. At this moment, it seemed as if the sky was about to collapse, and it was extremely shocking. Below, the corners of Yi Xian's eyes twitched. A moment later, he turned around and fled into Avatar Purgatory. In midair, the middle-aged man was stunned. He ran? He ran just like that? In midair, the middle-aged man fell silent for a moment, and then he vanished on the spot. When he appeared again, he was already in Avatar Purgatory. However, he'd just entered Avatar Purgatory when a black-robed man suddenly appeared before him. A sword was floating above the black-robed man's palm. When he saw this sword, the middle-aged man's expression instantly changed, and his eyes were filled with seriousness and fear. In the distance, the black-robed man spoke softly, "Take another step forward and I'll obliterate your soul." The middle-aged man was speechless. P.S. Please forgive me recently. Sorry. Truly sorry. Chapter 410. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at the black-robed man. After a moment, he smiled slightly. I knew it. How could an arrogant person like Yi Xian survive until now if there's no one behind him? He paused for a moment and said, "May I know who you are?" As he spoke, his right hand slowly clenched, and a mysterious force quietly condensed. Opposite him, the black-robed man took a step forward. This step was very calm, very calm, and there were no fluctuations of aura. However, the middle-aged man's expression was extremely vigilant. Because he knew that many times, some experts had reached the level of returning to simplicity. Every word and action contained the grand Tao of heaven and earth. Although he didn't feel any aura of the grand Tao at this moment, he still didn't dare to be careless. The more ordinary one was, the more extraordinary it might be. At this moment, the sword in front of the black-robed man suddenly trembled slightly. Seeing this sword, the middle-aged man's expression changed, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. With this retreat, his aura instantly weakened greatly. Noticing this scene, the middle-aged man's pupils constricted slightly, and he was greatly shocked. How could he be forced back by a sword? So, he took another 2 steps forward. With this, his aura instantly strengthened greatly. The middle-aged man's heart relaxed slightly. When he looked at the sword again, his eyes were filled with deep fear. His heart of martial arts had almost been broken by a sword. In the distance, the black-robed man suddenly said, "You're not bad to be able to stabilize your heart of martial arts after seeing this lord." The middle-aged man glanced at the black-robed man and slowly clenched his right hand. "May I know your name?" The black-robed man said, "A name is just a code." "So what if I know?" "So what if I don't know?" "Listen, go back and wait. In 5 days, this lord and this disappointing disciple of mine will personally come to the Gu family. At that time, us master and disciple will put an end to the Gu family." Hearing this, the middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly. "You want to go to my Gu family?" The black-robed man said, "No." The middle-aged man was silent for a moment, and then said, "In 5 days, I, Gu Jian, will be waiting for your arrival at the Gu family." With that, he turned and left. After Gu Jian left, the black-robed man turned and ran. This black-robed man was naturally Yi Xian. In the second level of the infernal purgatory, Yi Xian's expression was extremely grave. This was because he realized that there was still a huge gap between him and the man called Gu Mo. Unless he used the God set, he wouldn't be a match for his opponent. Even if he used the God Legion set, he wasn't completely confident that he could kill his opponent. If he couldn't kill his opponent, he would die for sure. Most importantly, he could not leave with Yi Ling and Dugu Xian, as there were too many people who had designs on him. Dragging it on like this wasn't a solution either. Power. Yi Xian's face darkened. At this moment, he still felt that his strength was severely lacking. Right now, even if he were to face a supreme being, he would not be afraid at all. However, this ancient side was clearly above the supreme realm. The difference in their realms was too great. Even with godly equipment, it was impossible to make up for it. Breakthrough. Yi Xian sat down and thought, "Miss Jian, if I want to reach the origin realm," Jian Zizai suddenly said, "Don't ask me, my realm is too low, I don't understand." Yi Xian's face darkened. "Miss Jian, didn't you also come up step by step?" "You." Jian Zizai said, "I became a god in 1 step, unlike you." Yi Xian was stunned, then curled his lips. "Became a god in 1 step? Who are you fooling?" Jian Zizai said softly, "The Tao seems very close, but it's not that close." For some people, the distance between them and the Tao was extremely far. However, for others, the distance between them and the Tao was only a single step. There are many such people in the world. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then said in a deep voice, "Miss Jian, then tell me, is it better to become a god step by step, or to become a god in 1 step?" Jian Zizai was silent for a moment, then said, "Is there any point in asking these questions? In short, you just need to understand one thing, and that is that you are currently very weak, understand?" Yi Xian was speechless. A moment later, Yi Xian spread out his right hand and gently clenched it. In an instant, the space trembled slightly, sensing origin energy. An hour later, Yi Xian was overjoyed because he felt a mysterious energy. He hurriedly used spatial force to condense it, and very soon, a black dot the size of a grain of rice appeared in his palm. Yi Xian was struck dumb at the sight of this black dot. "Isn't the origin chi purple?" After a moment of silence, he did not think too much about it and continued to condense it. Gradually, the black dot in his palm grew larger and larger. By now, it was already the size of a thumb, and this black dot contained a power. Yi Xian's expression was somewhat solemn because he felt that there was something wrong with this power, but he did not know what was wrong. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Miss Jian, is there something wrong?" Jian Zizai said, "There's nothing wrong, continue." Yi Xian nodded slightly and continued to condense it. Very soon, a black vortex appeared in his palm. As the black vortex appeared, the surrounding space suddenly trembled. At the same time, the space in front of him began to become illusory. Yi Xian's expression changed. "Miss Jian, what's going on?" Jian Zizai was silent for a moment, then said, "Spiritual qi." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "What is spiritual qi?" Jian Zizai said, "It's the spiritual qi that is emitted after a person dies. No one knows how many people have died here, and endless spiritual qi has gathered here. It is the most corrosive type of spiritual qi in this world besides the death qi." Yi Xian retreated again and again because the space in front of him began to disappear bit by bit. It was extremely terrifying. Jian Zizai said again, control them. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, how do I control them? Jian Zizai said, control them how you condense them. Yi Xian tried his best to calm himself down. He raised his right hand slightly and began to slowly clench it. Gradually, the spiritual qi in front of him began to slowly shrink until it disappeared. Seeing the spiritual qi disappear, Yi Xian immediately breathed a sigh of relief. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. Miss Jian, this spiritual qi is really terrifying. Jian Zizai said, above the origin realm is the supreme realm, but very few people know that there is a hidden realm between the origin realm and the supreme realm, which is the spiritual qi realm. Source qi is yang, yin energy is yin energy. Now that you've gained control of this yin energy, it's actually a good thing for you. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, which is stronger, spiritual qi or source qi? Jian Zizai said, guess. Yi Xian, Jian Zizai said, the yin spiritual energy is extremely corrosive. It can even corrode the origin of space. If you can control it well, even without the invincible golden body or the God Legion set, you can still kill a peerless realm expert. Most importantly, after you have mastered spiritual qi, if you can control source qi and combine the two, there will be a surprise. Yi Xian nodded, thank you for your guidance, Miss Jian. Jian Zizai said, there is a lot of yin spiritual qi in the infernal purgatory. You can condense it into yin spiritual qi swords, and then use these yin spiritual qi swords as flying swords against enemies in the future. Yin spiritual qi is qi, and it is very different from ordinary flying swords. It will have a miraculous effect. Yi Xian nodded slightly, understood. As he spoke, he began to slowly condense the spiritual qi. Soon, a sword appeared in front of him, a pitch-black sword. Yin-yang sword of qi. The whole sword was 3 feet long, without a hilt. It was completely black and exuded an extremely cold aura. Yi Xian's expression was solemn because this sword scar was dangerous. He did not dare to touch it unless he used the invincible golden body. Otherwise, even if his body had been tempered by the dragon blood, it would not be able to withstand the corrosion of the spiritual qi. Yi Xian carefully put the spiritual qi sword into the world prison pagoda. As soon as he entered the world prison pagoda, Xiao Linger flew over. However, when she saw the sword, her expression changed drastically. The next moment, she suddenly punched. Boom! The sword was directly blown away. Xiao Linger wanted to attack again, but Yi Xian hurriedly stopped her. Xiao Linger, what are you doing? Xiao Linger glanced at the sword with a cold expression, evil aura. Yi Xian smiled bitterly, then said, I am used to fight bad people. To fight bad people, you need to use evil things, understand? Xiao Linger did not speak. She still stared at the sword with an unfriendly expression. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. After a while, under his constant persuasion, Xiao Linger expressed that she was willing to temporarily let go of the sword. Looking at Xiao Linger not far away, Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Miss Jian, she seems to have become stronger again. Jian Zizai said, she has the body of origin, so it is natural for her to improve quickly. Yi Xian nodded slightly, you can't tell her that she is very good at fighting. He found that Xiao Linger's strength was really terrifying. If she knew that she was very good at fighting, this little guy would probably be lawless. After a while, Yi Xian left the prison pagoda and went to the 3rd level of infernal purgatory, where he continued to condense yin spiritual qi swords. 4 days later. The Gu family. As the head of the 3 great families in the heavenly domain, the Gu family's strength was naturally unquestionable, and the Gu family's foundation could be said to be the thickest among the 3 great families. On this day, all the experts of the Gu family returned. Gu's sickle stood in the air above the Gu family's mansion, his hands behind his back, standing quietly. The surroundings were very quiet, but all the experts of the Gu family were in the dark. On this day, the whole Gu family was waiting. Waiting for Yi Xian. To be precise, waiting for the mysterious black-robed man. They waited and waited, from morning to noon, and from noon to night, but Yi Xian and the mysterious black-robed man still did not appear. At night, an old man suddenly appeared beside Gu Sickle. Will they come? Gu Sickle's expression was calm. Wait. The old man nodded slightly and retreated. Soon, from night to dawn, there was still no trace of Yi Xian and the black-robed man. In the air, Gu Sickle's face was extremely gloomy. Infernal purgatory. Aren't you going to the Gu family? Did I say I'm going? You did. Oh. I won't go for now. Why? I can't beat them. I'll go when I can beat them. Jian Zizai. P.S. This is the first time I've experienced the departure of a loved one. In life, really, loved ones are the most important. I've been very busy these 2 days. I've been writing a little during the night watch, but I feel like I can't keep it up anymore. If I stop updating, please forgive me. Chapter 411. Above the Gu residence, Gu Scythe clenched his right hand tightly, his expression cold. He knew that he might have been fooled. But how could such an expert go back on his word? An old man appeared beside Gu Scythe. The old man looked at the horizon and frowned. Is that person really that strong? Gu Scythe said softly, a sword almost broke my martial heart. What do you think? The old man said in a low voice, such an expert should not go back on his word. Gu Scythe shook his head. No matter what, this person is not ordinary. Our Gu family cannot underestimate him. The old man said, naturally, I have checked on Yi Xian's background. The treasure should be on him. Apart from that, there seems to be a mysterious expert behind him. He has been in danger several times, but he has survived it silently. But we have no idea who he is or where he came from. Gu Scythe said indifferently, no matter who he is, our Gu family must get that treasure. If we can get it, our Gu family will be able to surpass the North and South martial sects, and even the Weiyang Star Palace. The old man said in a low voice, but if we really get it, I'm afraid it will be a disaster. Gu Scythe said, let's take a gamble. The old man nodded, as if thinking of something. He said, as far as I know, Yi Xian and the Yun family have a grudge. Gu Scythe said, contact the Yun family, and maintain the formation at the infernal hell. Don't let this person out. The old man nodded. There has always been someone maintaining the formation, but the demonic beast on the 9th floor. Hearing this, Gu Scythe's expression suddenly became serious. The Gu family was also quite afraid of the infernal hell. Gu Scythe was silent for a moment, then said, I will think of a way to deal with it. With that, he turned and disappeared into the horizon. Dugu family. Because of Yi Xian, there were only a few people left in the Dugu family. It could be said that the current Dugu family was no longer qualified to be on the same level as the Yen family and Gu family. Within a large hall, Dugu Yen, who was still in his soul form, sat quietly, his expression somewhat malevolent. Because of Yi Xian, the Dugu family's strength had been greatly reduced. Some of the surrounding forces had already begun to slowly nibble away at the Dugu family's surrounding industries. As for the Dugu family, they had no power to resist, nor did they dare to resist. At this moment, Dugu Ming walked into the hall. Seeing Dugu Ming, Dugu hurriedly stood up. Is he dead? Dugu Ming shook his head. Dugu Lian sat down. Even the Gu family can't kill him. Dugu Ming glanced at Dugu Lian. We have to leave the heaven region. Leave the heaven domain. Dugu Lian narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? Dugu Ming said in a low voice, now that our Dugu family has lost its power, if we continue to stay here, only death awaits us. If we bring our people away now, we still have a chance to make a comeback. Dugu Lian said in a somewhat sinister voice, are we just going to let the people of my Dugu family die? Dugu Ming sighed softly, if this goes on, more people will die in the family. Dugu Lian clenched his fists tightly, Yi Xian must die. Dugu Ming glanced at Dugu Lian, then quietly retreated. Outside the hall, Dugu Ming looked at the horizon and said softly, there's no hope. With that, he immediately left. Leave the Duga family. In the end, he still chose to leave the Duga family, because he could not see any hope. In the hall, Duga Lian was silent for a moment, then he came to the Duga family's ancestral hall. In the center of the ancestral hall, there was a statue of a middle-aged man. Duga Lian was silent for a long time, then he slowly knelt down. Ancestor, the Duga family has suddenly encountered a great change. This unfilial son respectfully requests the ancestor's soul to appear. After a moment, the statue's hands suddenly moved. Endless Purgatory, 9th floor. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. In front of him, a yin spiritual chi sword was condensing. Behind him, Yi Ling quietly leaned against him, while Duga Xian sat at the side, looking at the two siblings. As for the little demon beast, it stared at Yi Xian. It really wanted to slap Yi Xian to death, but it did not dare to do so. After about an hour, the space in front of Yi Xian trembled slightly, following which, a yin spiritual chi sword condensed. Now, he had condensed 7 yin spiritual chi swords. Each of the yin spiritual energy swords was equivalent to a supreme grade saint weapon. Most importantly, these swords could not be touched. Even supreme beings would be corroded if they touched them. Moreover, this sword was gaseous, extremely light, and used as a flying sword, its speed would be very fast. Yi Xian hurriedly put the sword into the world prison pagoda. He did not dare to let the sword stay outside for too long, because he still could not completely control this yin spiritual chi sword. Inside the world prison pagoda, Shaolinger stood in front of the 8 yin spiritual chi swords, staring coldly at the 8 swords. You guys, be careful, I'm very good at fighting, you know? As she spoke, she raised her little fist. Yi Xian, seeing Yi Xian, Shaolinger blinked, then turned her head to continue watering her spirit fruit, but from time to time, she would look coldly at the 9 swords, and those swords clearly did not dare to provoke her. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He looked at the 9 yin spiritual chi swords. With these 9 flying swords, it was equivalent to having another trump card. At this time, Duga Xian walked over. She glanced at Yi Xian, and softly said, "What do you plan to do next?" Yi Xian grabbed the hand of the sleeping Yi Ling. "Protect you guys." Duga Xian suddenly sat in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian, and softly said, "Are you willing to call me mother?" Yi Xian's hand trembled slightly. He was silent for a moment, and then said, "Give me some time." Some things, in the end, were difficult to let go of in a short time. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Duga Xian hurriedly said, Okay. Her face was full of smiles, and there were tears. Yi Xian softly said, "My sister and I grew up in the Yi family, but we know nothing about father, about him." Duga Xian fell silent. Yi Xian said, "You can't say?" Duga Xian shook her head. "Mother will tell you about this in the future, okay?" Yi Xian nodded, and as he spoke, he placed Yi Ling in Duga Xian's arms, and then walked in front of the little demon beast not far away. The little demon beast looked at Yi Xian, its expression calm. It was impossible to tell whether it was happy or angry. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then said, "There are many people who want to kill me, they are all very strong." The little demon beast quietly looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, "From the first time I saw Senior, I knew that Senior is a demon with a very righteous heart. Regarding this kind of thing, Senior will definitely not sit by and do nothing, right?" The little demon beast looked straight at Yi Xian, and its tone was very firm, "I will." As it spoke, it emphasized again, "I really will." Yi Xian's face darkened. This guy is not into the role. The little demon beast walked in front of Yi Xian, and it looked straight at Yi Xian. "She is not here, is she?" This "she" was naturally referring to Jian Zizai. Yi Xian nodded. "She is not." The little demon beast stared at Yi Xian, and after a moment, it said, "Human, leave this place." As it spoke, it turned to leave, but at this moment, Yi Xian hurriedly said, Wait. The little demon beast looked at Yi Xian, and Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then said, "Don't you want to go out?" There was a hint of ridicule in the little demon beast's eyes. "Can you do it?" Yi Xian said, I can't do it, but my master can. Jian Zizai. The little demon beast narrowed its eyes, and it just looked at Yi Xian. After a long time, it shook its head. If she sees me, she will only kill me. Yi Xian said, with me here, she won't. The little demon beast sneered, how can you guarantee that? Yi Xian said seriously, I am her only disciple, and she likes me the most. She will usually listen to my words. The little demon beast looked at Yi Xian, I really don't understand, you don't even have a god root, and your physique is so ordinary, why would she like you? Yi Xian, haha, suddenly, Jian Zizai's loud laughter came from the prison pagoda, this god race gatekeeper can speak, I will spare it, Yi Xian. At this moment, the little demon beast suddenly said, I can't go out, but if they enter the 9th floor, I can protect them. Hearing this, Yi Xian was overjoyed, and just as he was about to speak, the little demon beast said, but there is a condition. Yi Xian said seriously, speak. The little demon beast hesitated for a moment, and then said, if she comes, tell her not to hit me. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. This guy is actually so afraid of Jian Zizai. It seems that what Jian Zizai did in the god race was not as simple as the old man above said. Not only that, but this woman was not simple. Although she was usually very gentle and not very angry, Yi Xian knew that this kind of person was the most terrifying, because once she was angry, it could destroy the world. It was better not to provoke her in the future. With the little demon beast's promise, Yi Xian was slightly relieved. At the very least, as long as Yi Ling and Duge Xian did not go out, there would be no problem for the time being. Yi Xian walked to the side and sat down cross-legged, then he took out the Earth God's seal and said in a low voice, Miss Jian, how can I refine this thing? Jian Zizai said, drip a drop of blood. Yi Xian was slightly doubtful. It's that simple? Yes. Are you sure? I'm sure. You won't lie to me? I won't lie. Yi Xian was speechless. He hesitated. Yi Xian didn't drip a drop of blood directly because Jian Zizai's words were truly quite unreliable. Unfortunately, the god on the 2nd floor refused to answer him. Yi Xian hesitated for a long time. In the end, he dripped a drop of his blood essence onto the Earth God's seal. In an instant, a strand of dazzling white light erupted from the Earth God's seal, and then it flew directly into the space between Yi Xian's brows. Bang! A powerful aura suddenly swept out from within Yi Xian. At the same time, an illusory figure appeared in front of Yi Xian. In next to no time, the figure condensed into a middle-aged man who wore a dragon robe and a dragon crown. The Divine Emperor. The Divine Emperor gazed at Yi Xian, and his voice resounded like a bell. What is the Earth God seal? Yi Xian's mind shook, and then he shook his head. I don't know. The Divine Emperor asked again. What is the living beings of the world? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he shook his head. I don't know. The Divine Emperor continued. What is the living beings of the world? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he shook his head again. I don't know. The Divine Emperor fell silent for a moment, and then he said, It's very difficult for me to do this. You should at least know how to be Dao Yi. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. I was busy until 1:30. I'm very tired. I want to rest. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.